Listen up, Gotham. This is Batman. Tune into the Bat Fanatic podcast with Sammy Warmhands. And if you don't, I'll be coming for you.
Hey everybody, it's the Dark Knight of Rap, Sammy Warmhands, and this is the Bat Fanatic podcast. As always, I will be joined by my co-host, Ben. Evan is off today. Happy anniversary to you and the wife. I do want to start the show by just saying once again, RIP to the legend, Kevin Conroy. I hadn't heard that clip at the top of the show in quite a while, and man, what an icon, what a loss to the community. I also want to shout out our Season 3 sponsor, the Nando Knight, TNK Comics. You can follow him on shortboxed.com/TNK Comics or on Instagram at the Nando Knight, KNIGHT. Today, we are celebrating the return of the OG Michael Keaton. This is The Flash. We're back, kinda.
Who's we?
It's another Ben and I review a new movie episode, and Evan is in Hawaii living his life.
I mean, if I had to pick between that or this.
Well, yesterday, wife and I went on a trip to Thrice show. Got this cool VIP pre-show performance and meet and greet thing, and I was so excited. And I mean, we both were, but I said to her, "Would you rather be on this trip or Evan's trip?" And she's like, "I mean, Hawaii, no question, but this is great." And I'm like, "Really?"
Give it 15 years and Thrice will play Hawaii shows. That'll be like an all-inclusive Thrice cruise around the Big Island or something.
Isn't there like a punk cruise ship happening this summer or something?
They're old enough now where I'm sure.
I think that's a thing. Anyway, we are doing The Flash, brand new 2023, directed by Andy Muschietti, written by Christina Hodson of Birds of Prey and the canceled Batgirl movie, which I would love to know how she feels right now, if she's able to celebrate this, or if she feels like, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, And then story by, according to IMDb, is Joby Harold. Though when I was in the theater, I remember seeing what's the dude who was the new kid in Waiting, and then he went to become a director, is John Francis something or whatever. I swear to God, I saw that guy's name.
Oh, the guy who was from Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, I swear.
I don't know his name, but...
I swear I saw his name, that there were 3 people with the story by.
They were in a diner, and he was like, what if? It was like The Flash, but other Flash.
Okay, hear me out. But yeah, on IMDb, it doesn't have all those other people, so maybe I saw it wrong. I was paying attention to everything going on behind the credits for the most part. Starring Ezra Miller, Ben Affleck, Sasha Calle, the incredible Michael Shannon, an American treasure, and Michael Keaton. I do want to shout out, let me pull this up on my phone real quick, because they replaced Billy Crudup as his dad with Ron Livingston from Office Space.
Weird, because it was like Ron Livingston doing a Billy Crudup impression.
I mean, I thought he was pretty natural, actually, but...
No, Ron Livingston's a great actor, but he doesn't sound like that in real life. He's doing whatever that weird kind of way Billy Crudup kind of talks like this, at least in that movie. Just strange.
I thought that he did a good job. What I thought was weird is that this movie was delayed many times, right? This is I saw someone today be like, man, I'm kind of getting tired of the multiverse movies. I'm like, yeah, this was supposed to be the first one, but you took so fucking long, But because the movie got delayed so many times and Billy couldn't reprise his role due to scheduling, I mean, the guy's in 5-10% of the movie. You really couldn't put those scenes off?
Yeah, and I don't know how much,
I don't like recasting in general. I didn't have a problem in this movie as a standalone, but in the whole thing.
No, I don't like it either. It's weird when other people stay the same, because then it makes it feel even less connected. Even though this movie has a thread of but now this guy is that. That was not intentional for the sake of the story.
Well, yeah, because everything else is and now we fucked with the multiverse. And well, you didn't fuck with the multiverse for your dad, and your dad's different. What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, right. We had Kiersey Clemons as Iris West. Oh, here we go. Nora Allen was played by Maribel Verdú. She was just radiant and beautiful, and I love her.
Yeah, I can't remember what else she's been in, but I know
her performance
I've seen her in other things.
Fantastic. Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay.
Is what it
that's
says.
at least one of them.
But yeah, she was just...
So maybe she's Spanish, not Italian.
Yeah, she was just perfect. I did think that was funny. I was like, Spanish-speaking household upbringing of this very white actor.
Ezra Miller looks like...
He did a moment of Spanish, you know, as an adult.
They, that's as much as I don't like them, they is the preferred pronoun at this point. I think...
Yeah.
Just say Barry. Just Barry or Ezra.
Yeah, when it comes to folks who use those terms, just the incredibly fucking deep to my bones retardation that I have here.
That's true. I can see it from here.
I can't do it.
Just try and, yeah, that's fine.
I have people.
I will
have
keep
people in
pointing
my
it
life
out.
who
I don't even
say
care.
that, but I can't.
I'm just going to point it out because that's another thing I can poke you on. That's all.
That's fine. You can make me look like a bad person. Hey, be who you want to be. We're all part of the same team here, but like fucking, I can't say the thing.
The way I think about it, because Ezra Miller seems kind of like a piece of shit. Maybe they'll grow, maybe they'll change.
Sure. Yeah,
but the way I think about it as
I might say they referring to both Barrys, though.
Well, you can say Barry because Barry Allen is a he, so that's...
Exactly.
Yeah. But growing up as a fat kid, it would be like if someone was a piece of shit and they were also fat, and then like the answer to them was like, whatever, you fat loser. And then like you're over here and you're fat and you're not a piece of shit. And you're like, oh, that's where the...
You're like, did you have to attack that part?
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's why
Anyway, composed by Benjamin Wallfish is usually the last part that we put before, we stop reading a list of names. I thought that he did a good job. We heard some Elfman homages at times, but he would do it differently. The music wasn't like the forefront of the film in the way that most new comic book movies, it isn't, because it's kind of, we've heard it all at this point. But I'd say it was above average.
Yeah,
it was engrossing.
I thought it was good. It was like par for the course, which is incredibly high quality, expensive movie music. But nothing like, other than the Danny Elfman things like you're talking about, nothing
Not
jumped out.
Not iconic, but good. Yeah. Very good.
It had some of the stuff, which I give James Gunn a pass for it, because it's he has his own version of it that has now become his thing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel like a Quentin Tarantino ripoff of using pop songs. And this felt like a ripoff of his thing at times when they used pop music.
I thought they very tastefully did that because it only happens twice in the movie if you exclude the closing credits, or if you exclude his mom singing in the kitchen, which is just, part of the memory. But I genuinely liked that when they have the fight scene at the end.
That's what I didn't like.
Where's my fucking...
Because when that happens...
I had these notes in a different spot. Right. They used Chicago at Wayne Manor, which I thought was cool.
When they used it when he's getting coffee, too.
That was in the beginning?
I believe so, yeah.
Interesting. But then they used the Jack White, or one of his many projects, in the desert fight. And I was fucking, to sound like an old guy, I was fucking jazzed, man. I was fucking jazzed.
You were on the chain. You were up the chain.
Yeah, dude.
I didn't, because if we're going to compare it to what, again, it seems like sort of ripping off to me, is the James Gunn thing, where when you have the Guardians of the Galaxy all come together and have a scene where they're fighting all the goons, and it's not the big climactic fight, and they're doing that, and you have a cool pop song playing, whatever, that's fun. You can't do that when you're fighting what at this point is seemingly the main villain.
I disagree. Think of Immigrant Song in Ragnarok. So that was a very good use of it.
When in the movie is that?
The big fight at the end on the bridge with Hela and the big wolf motherfucker and shit. And they're trying to evacuate the whole city of Asgard and shit. I
feel like it sort of applies.
That was a movie
too.
that relies on the score, but then in that moment, you bring on the dun 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 dun. It's fucking badass. I don't think you can necessarily be like anyone who uses a song from pop culture is like, that's fucking James Gunn,
No, but but it's in that scene. That's where I say it's like James Gunn, because I felt like it was used in the way he would use it.
Sure.
When it shouldn't have been in that scene. When we go a little further and find out that that's not even the main bad guy or whatever, it sort of forgives that a little bit, but I'm
the main bad guy.
You are the main bad guy. That's what this is all leading up to.
Because of the pronouns. That's why. Yeah. I'm the true villain of the story. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm going to cancel you.
Fuck.
With this baseball bat.
Oh.
No, violence is bad, guys. No, but I didn't like it. The Chicago thing was okay, but it just, as soon as I hear pop music in a
See,
movie.
what I liked is that they walk in and there's a record spinning out while he's, cooking, and it's just sort of ambient music, right? And then once they're down there, it sort of stops. Mm-hmm. And then it kicks on at not like a filtered, distant volume, but it kicks back on into the song at like full volume when the fight scene emerges, and I just like how it was used.
But that's when I feel like a pop song is more appropriate, when it's just a fun fight or to demonstrate the toughness of the heroes, not a fight that's supposed to matter. Where it's like, oh man, are they going to kill Hitler or not? And then like this ripping guitar solo comes in, and
as they smashes the soft spot in baby Hitler's head. Yeah. Well, speaking of babies,
can't stand it. You know I planned it.
I think that that is a good segue. Babies in peril to begin the plot here. The first thing in the movie is already exciting to me, and that is the title cards. They go through every incarnation of the DC logo, and then they go through every incarnation of the WB logo.
That was fun.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what we're in for. I like that they got rid of the same old, animated Justice League intro where they obscured all the faces because everyone's replaceable. But I'm going to be reading a little bit from a synopsis that somebody else wrote.
The Bible.
Since I wasn't able to. Yes. And on the first day,
Harold beget Harold, who
I wasn't able to take notes in the theater. When did you see it? Yesterday?
Oh, I haven't seen this movie.
Okay, got it.
I watched like those condensed 30-minute YouTube reviews.
Yeah.
To tell me what to be mad about.
Yes, definitely.
This is why I don't like this movie.
Yeah.
Thank you, review.
And then they cast a black person as, oh no!
I saw it on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
At 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah, I saw it Thursday, Friday, and 2 weeks ago at that Portland early screening thing. The funny thing is that it was like, yeah, this is the work in progress cut that they screened in April at a film industry convention thing, and so it's got some unfinished CGI, and then the ending is just going to cut off
that's
abruptly.
the version I saw too.
Yeah, it's just going to cut off abruptly. I'm like, all right, cool. And so when I watched it, I was like, that looks kind of goofy. Oh, right, it's not finished. That makes sense, Then you get to the end, and sure enough, it just does cut off immediately, and you're like, all right, man, well, I'm excited to see the fresh version, right? And then you go see the theatrical version, and it's like, oh, this is exactly the same until the last 30 seconds. Like, wow, they went with it. All right. So in the beginning, Barry is trying to order a sandwich that the lady normally has ready for him. It's as usual. He's upset with this guy who's asking a lot of probing questions about a sandwich. He's taking forever, and Barry's running late. And then he gets a call from Alfred. We get Jeremy Irons' first cameo in the film. Superman's busy. Wonder Woman's busy.
He says a line like,
Aquaman.
you were my first call.
Yeah, he's like, how many first calls did you have before you thought of me? And there's a terrorist attack. Bruce says something about, there's Affleck's Bruce, this might be confusing, I guess, says something about Falcone's kid try to take this deadly virus or whatever the fuck, It's very generic superhero bullshit.
Which it has that vibe of like, let's say these things because the fan people will be happy with us.
Yeah, there's an Easter egg, guys.
Oh, Falcone. I remember him from that other stuff.
But kind of nothing in this scene matters except for to establish, like, remember, guys, this is Batman in this universe. They know each other.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is what makes the Flash special. Watch.
Yes.
Look at the way he solves this problem.
Yes. He's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And while he's waiting for that guy to make his fucking sandwich, he zips out into the street. And I love he takes his stance, his running stance, and his little visors come down in his eye holes there in his new mask. And which I didn't love the look of the plasticky bright red suit, and then I saw it on the screen. I'm like, fuck yeah, this rules.
Cool. Well, and then you're going to say, and then the Flash logo comes down and then gets
the
interrupted.
Flash logo, yeah, the title card comes down over the screen halfway, and then you see that clip from the trailer of those teenage girls going, oh my God, Flash! And a good joke where he's low on energy. He didn't get his fucking high-protein sandwich that he's waiting for, and he's got to run off and do this thing.
A Fitbit or an Apple Watch to tell
He's got a calorie counter on his suit, and he's like, are you actively eating that candy bar? Can you throw it to me? And then Alfred's like, I'll patch you through to Mr. Wayne, and then Batman's on the line, and so he turns his head, And the girl throws a thing and hits him right in the head, which is great because, obviously the Flash could stop it if he saw it coming, but he didn't see it coming. And then he's like, all right, fine, I'll fucking be there. And then we get the proper, hunker down to run.
Which is cute, Flash. But it defeats the purpose of being a really fast guy if you have to stop and pose.
Yeah. I mean, I think...
But because he stopped doing that later on in the movie. It just became it's not a requirement. You don't have to stop and pose. It's just for hey, look at this.
Yeah, I think part of it is because Snyder always had him do these really elaborate, weird body language, which they kind of make fun of a little bit later in the movie, which I love.
Fall on Wonder Woman.
Yeah, right in the tits. Do it. But I think that there's sort of to what degree is he about to use his powers? Because in this case, he has to go really fucking far away in a very short amount of time. And so he's like, all right, let's fucking barrel down and do it. But if he's just going to I got to zip over and grab that fucking falling cat from a tree, I can just bzz, bzz.
Yeah, but it just seems weird because you could go fast, and then when you're in the fast mode, use that time to then go really fast.
Sure.
That would take less time than standing there and posing.
Well, I'm just trying. I always give these people the benefit of the doubt.
You're not supposed to think this hard about it.
What I will say is the first running he's doing right here, and we see him covering all this terrain and going over bodies of water and shit, which, by the way, with all the sparks flying and the lightning and shit, that would cause some problems.
Car accidents and deaths.
No, I mean on a body of water.
Oh.
But I'm already okay, they got rid of all of his goofiness in the way that he runs. I think
sort of, because they make it a joke at its expense later.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
Pose.
But they make it look much better. And I want to clarify that we mentioned VFX, and I watched this the third time on Friday, and then I went home and watched BVS, and it is insane how much better looking BVS is compared to this movie in terms of special effects. And so
yes.
I don't mean that. I just mean in
style choices.
Yes. Yeah. Because I always thought his running was super goofy. And yeah, he makes it to this fucking place. Alfred's giving him the play-by-play, and he's like, this hospital's about to collapse. And he's like, dude, it's fine,
I'm already, at this point, annoyed with him.
Yeah.
This character is okay when he's not the main character. It's not Ezra Miller's fault, despite, whoever they are as a person. Just that, the way they chose to write this character is obnoxious.
Which they also address later.
And they make it worse when you meet the really obnoxious version of it. So it's
I forgot to do the initial thoughts portion of the show. And,
to get a feel of my...
I'm going to figure it out as we go, I think.
I loved it. There's no problem with this movie. I've been waiting my whole life, and it definitely wasn't just a great excuse to see Michael Keaton as Batman again.
Apparently that was the selling point for the happy couple behind the scenes that made this movie, the director and his producer wife.
Getting to see Michael Keaton again?
Was, I think, when they realized that they could do that, they were like, we should really fucking do this movie.
Yeah.
Now, he's at the hospital. Barry's like, okay, where the fuck is Batman? Are you, that's when we have the little thing. He's chasing the Falcone folks through the city. He dumps out of a fucking, that big Batwing carrier thing in a motorcycle. It's the first time we see Affleck on a motorcycle. A cool little action scene through the streets.
Yeah.
Feels a little bit Amazing Spider-Man 2. In the beginning of that movie, he's trying to stop these chemicals or whatever they've stolen from hitting the ground, and he's like trying to
hot lava.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the fucking rhino thing, but the scene wasn't really in that movie. It didn't have a lot of intention other than to be like, hey guys, it's fucking Spider-Man.
Here's what he's up to.
Yeah, exactly. Been a while. He's still at it, And in this one, Bruce is off doing that shit. And then what I do like in a superhero setting we've talked about is not a fight, but a rescue mission. Mm-hmm. And so Flash is the perfect candidate for a rescue mission. This scene is a little bit like Quicksilver in Days of Future Past, saving everybody. Or it might have been Apocalypse. One of those, where he saves everybody from the mansion as it's exploding.
Days of Future Past, I think.
Because that was his first movie. I want to say it was in his second movie that he did that.
Maybe in the first one is when he fights the guys in the kitchen.
Yeah, the kitchen one was the first one. So, but it's sort of like that. It's a rescue scene, except as the building is collapsing, it's like the nursery ward or whatever you call it in a hospital. I don't have kids. And so all these babies are falling out the window with all this debris, and we get these little close-ups of each baby, and there's like all the scalpels pointed at one baby, and then there's the fucking open container of acid splashing at one of them.
And I started laughing at first because I was like, this CG is really bad. These babies look terrible. And then once that stuff started happening, I'm like, okay, this is a funny scene anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Like, now you're having me think about babies getting stabbed by scalpels and hit with acid.
And there's another one that was like, there weren't like sharp objects or anything like flying at it, but he was like between like a bookcase and a fucking, just about to get sandwiched between two horrible things. And so
like scissors flying.
We see Flash run up, climbing on all the debris at super speed, right? And he goes, like they show a baby that's in his sights, and he runs to it and past it and reaches into the vending machine and starts eating all this shit.
Because he got another low blood sugar warning.
Yeah. And I really love that joke. Then he starts he throws the bedpan that'll catch the acid, and he takes a bite of a frozen burrito and then throws it, and it knocks the fucking scalpels out of the way. The other one, and he kind of plays this little chess game that diffuses all of the threats.
Which is neat because they established a little later that he can't just grab people because they will disintegrate if he runs with them.
Yeah.
But the rules don't apply to objects, so he has to like puzzle game it. Like, okay, I can't touch the baby, but I can touch this thing and I can touch that thing.
Yeah, and there's a part where he'll just like, boop, like he'll maybe like tap just the slightest bit, or like pull the clothing just the slightest bit, or something like that.
Change momentum just a little bit.
Exactly, but not actually move them. And then he takes, and then there's a great shot, like after like the fourth baby, then it cuts to like a therapy dog with his fucking like tongue hanging out, like
looking
falling.
at him.
Yeah, and then he takes a stretcher and runs to the ground, and he catches each baby in a line on the stretcher. Oh yeah, okay. So I've seen a couple people complain about this, but there's a cosplayer I followed for a long time. She's from Florida. It's relevant to what I'm about to say.
Okay.
She posted that she walked out of this movie in the first 10 minutes because
nobody had an abortion.
Because putting a baby in a microwave is not funny. And as a mother, I cannot condone this. And with these Hollywood people drinking the baby's blood and all this, and I was like, whoa, you are full on QAnon. I had no idea. And so,
to be fair, people who, as one of them who does it, who live their lives in fantasy worlds,
yes,
are prone to living their life in a fantasy world. So,
yeah. Anyway, she went full on adrenochrome, and I went, okay, this is unfollow. I'm sorry. It's been nice.
Well, because that's like the slippery slope. That's how they get you accustomed to the idea of putting babies in microwaves, and then before you know it, you're sucking the adrenaline out too. You're living forever.
I know. I mean, and they do it to keep young, and I know that Hillary was one of the main people because she looks so young.
Oh yeah, she doesn't look a day over 80.
Yeah. Anyway, so he does catch a baby in a microwave and closes the door, and then as they're all landing on the stretcher, he catches a microwave and it dings and opens up and takes the baby out. And clearly the microwave is not plugged in to anything. It's just dinging because it fucking landed.
Because it makes the joke.
Yeah, whatever. And I laughed very hard at this whole scene start to finish. And we are going to be here for 6 days if we go through every scene with this much detail.
And everyone got upset. I thought that was funny, and that was a good start, and that's set a unique tone for this movie.
Yes. And I was on board, and then we cut back to Batman. He's on a bridge. Again, kind of a Spider-Man scene. He takes out the guys inside their car, I guess like Deadpool, first Deadpool. And when one guy looks at him, he's driving and just sees Batman and jumps out.
Yeah.
And then he catches the one guy who has like the briefcase handcuffed to him.
That's
with
the Falcone
yeah,
son.
That's got the fucking virus. That's got the Wuhan virus in it, And
Ice 9 for people who read books.
So he gets that guy books, and
it's like a comic without pictures.
Weird,
not blank, just all words.
Oh, so it just says lettered by. There's there's
exactly.
no. Okay, interesting. He catches this guy going off the ledge with the car, right? So they're falling off the bridge, catches it, and then the things are dangling in peril, like if that gets into the water supply, and Alfred's being like the fucking, the guy from Batman Begins, it's right under the water mains. He catches the guy, but he's slipping, and then we get, from off screen, the lasso of Hastia fucking wraps around their wrist and oh man, the way we were out of sync there was beautiful. It's amazing we're musicians in a band together.
I was on.
I started. But Wonder Woman cameo, fantastic. Did I mention there's spoilers, guys? We're spoiling everything. We always do.
If you cared about this movie and you're a person who listens to this podcast, you have already watched the movie. So either you don't care about this movie and you want our view on it, or you don't care about this podcast and you're not listening to it. So I don't think
you can't talk to people who aren't listening to the show. That's just weird.
I can talk to whoever I want.
So I'm going to blame Tom from the Bat Force for this.
That's unlike you to blame someone else.
Yeah. Tom, we talked about this movie, I think after my second viewing. He loved certain things about it, but he was like, I give it a 7 out of 10. And I said, did you take off 3 points for Batfleck's suit? Because that's a major downgrade. And
wouldn't it look so bad if it wasn't in broad daylight?
He's like, no, man, this is clearly Justice League universe. This is not the Snyderverse. And when I saw it the third time, I couldn't get that out of my head. I'm like, oh, you're right. Because they replayed the lasso gag where Aquaman was like, and you're just fucking beautiful. Man, we're all going to die. And that whole thing. And I'm like, you're right, they did, because Bruce Wayne, or Batman actually is like, I mean, if I really wanted to solve these problems, I just give all my money away. If I wanted to end crime, I got to end poverty, and that whole...
Before they even revealed that
thing.
The lasso was on him, and he said that well, my ego's too big to thank anyone or admit that anyone else helped me.
Right.
And
you're
I was like,
Sam.
I did think of you. I let it slide when I saw that the lasso was there, but I was like, but... even if that's true, Batman doesn't think that. He's not lying about that. He's not like, I can't admit that they helped me.
Right.
But this version of him apparently is. I'm like, that's weird. Same thing with that he thinks it's a joke, I know. But that apparently this Batman honestly thinks, if I really cared, I would give all my money
he's
away.
too stubborn to stop his quest.
So you don't take the character, an important character in its movie, seriously.
Yes.
That's a sign right there.
Not just that, but a character who's one of the main selling points for the movie.
Yeah, this isn't Lego Batman where you can say well, that's part of the fun.
Yeah, and I think that Affleck is at his best
when he's Bruce Wayne.
Well,
in this movie, I mean.
Okay, but as Batman in the cowl is best when he's that ruthless, intense Batman. I sort of chuckled at that gag the first time, and then each time I saw it, I was sort of like, man, this is just out of character. And it was like the reshoots that Joss Whedon did for Justice League. That's like, God, he is not.
Is this a credit card commercial?
And
what are we watching?
Wow, he is tall. That's just not. Ben Affleck's funny. He does a lot of comedies. That's where I first discovered him, was the asshole from The Fashionable Male in 1995. But that's not his Batman. It's weird to see him do that. And
no, you don't understand. This isn't the one we know. This is a slightly different multiverse that's playing on the characters we know, but you're wrong, unfortunately.
This is actually a good segue, because if that's a question, right? They've said before, okay, we're going to release the Snyder Cut, but this isn't actually canon. We're not going to pretend that this is the real thing, right? And they continued promoting the old one after that came out. This movie acknowledges both of them, which is very strange. The next scene, he's late to work. He's a forensic scientist, or whatever the fuck he does.
And we meet these annoying coworkers just so that we can meet them again later. They're different.
Yeah, those coworkers should not.
Biff is the mayor of the city now.
They should not be in the beginning of the movie. That's one of the worst scenes in the whole movie. But we do meet Iris West, and Iris West was not in the theatrical Justice League. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but she's like, I swear, I have seen you again since college, right? We ran into each other one time, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, because there was that whole scene with the hot dogs and the car crash, and he saved her. So that was acknowledged clear as day. But then there's a scene shortly after this with Affleck, where Barry's talking about, well, if I could turn back time, and they're acting like that has never happened before, when that was the whole climax of Snyder's Justice League.
No, but they do say, because they have a conversation in that same conversation where he says...
They use a weird word that I didn't understand any of my viewings. Did you catch it?
You want to tell me the word?
No, I don't know. Because that's what they're saying. He's like, well, in the blah, 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 He's like, yeah, but that was just for a split second.
That's what I mean, because they were saying he's acknowledging that he did go back in time, but it was only for a moment. Then he's saying, but if you went back really far, you'd mess everything up, so don't do that. That's that is what he said.
I was guessing that was more about the BVS thing, where he pokes his head through and there's a premonition.
No, he's talking about specifically that, like, you saved us last time by going back in time just a little bit.
Okay, well, even if it does acknowledge that, then it does negate what happened in BVS, which is unquestionably part of this canon. So that's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's the problem when you do time travel stories. On the one end, you take time travel very seriously and you establish rules and you follow them, and you get a movie like Primer, which is like an interesting movie, but really weird and hard to follow.
Yeah.
Not just because it's about time travel, but because of choices about the way it's made, and it's like intentionally obtuse to be like, you're just dumb, you don't get it. It's a cool movie. I recommend it. But it's like, that's what happens when you set rules about time travel and stick to them.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you get a movie like this where, like, there aren't rules, they act like there are, but it's just kind of like, don't change this, but you can change this.
What I like about it is that they treat it closer to Endgame. Endgame is like, look, you've seen all these movies and they say this, but actually is blah, blah, which allows them to, like, okay, but we're going to do it a little different than you've seen.
Yeah, there is that of, like, they sort of say, like, it will be different, but
so we're not seeing the exact same thing.
I appreciate the comparison, because to me it felt like trying to capitalize on that people are familiar with what happened in Endgame without doing any of that. Because the whole gimmick of Endgame is they create alternate universes and they go to them, but as long as when they solve their problem on their place, go back to the exact moment they changed it and unchange it, it's fine. We're like, this movie is not that. This movie is,
sure,
you could just go do whatever and more spaghetti, but, like, there's parts where the spaghetti meets, and those are always going to be the same. And
if anyone hasn't seen this yet and they're just like, what the fuck is he talking about?
I'm having a stroke, guys. But, the idea, like, you can't change this, but some things you can, and unfortunately one of the things you can't change is this, but apparently this other stuff doesn't matter. It's not, there are no rules, and they act like there are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for a movie that's about a story, that kind of muddies it.
I don't know. I guess I like having a little more freedom to fuck shit up in a story like this.
I'll give it credit, because there's a moment near the end, which I'll bring up when we get there, where it won me back a little bit. Because leading up to it, it felt like they were trying to get me to care in a way that all that stuff I just complained about prevents me from caring about it.
Yeah.
It's like when every universe exists and everybody's alive here and dead there and whatever, it's like I know it no longer matters to me.
Yeah.
I don't have any tension about it. It could still be kind of fun to watch, but I'm not worried. I don't care.
Yeah. So
we're in the first seventh minute of the movie.
Yeah, right. So yeah, he
calls his dad on the phone. He's at home.
He meets Iris, they have that fucking thing, and then, like, has her over to his apartment. Like, so is that why you got into this? Was to save your dad, like to fix it, And she's like, that's kind of why I became a journalist, like to try to do good and try to fix the system.
I'm almost hit by a mail truck.
And Ezra does this amazing thing where his eyes start darting back and forth. Barry's just like on a fucking whole other planet right now where she's talking to him, and he's just like, oh my God, I could fix it. If I just went back to warn them. No, if I went back to, and he's trying to piece this together, all of a sudden having this epiphany, and I love the performance in this scene, just trying to process this information and at a speed in which the Flash would process this information, and then just immediately walks out of the room like, this has been great, nice to see you, bye, and like leaves his own house. Love it. Goes to see Bruce. I could save my parents. I could save your parents. Oh my God. And we get Bruce doing what Bruce should do in the situation of, like, those scars made us who we are. You can't fuck with the fabric of time.
But you can. If you could change time, you could stop every bad thing from happening because you have unlimited time to do it.
Sure.
It's a neat thing to say, but it doesn't fit with what happens in the movie.
But I think that this...
It's important that I'm Batman. I'm glad my parents died. Well, you could just make it so they don't die. You can make it so everyone's parents. Nothing bad ever happens to anyone because you can time travel now.
To me, it's just a very mature Bruce. Like, if we had met a younger Bruce, he might be like, fuck, oh my God, that's very exciting. But I think a post-BVS Bruce that's sort of like, you know what, I found some acceptance in the way things have ended up, and I think it's on brand.
The message in this scene, which ultimately becomes the message of the movie, is true and is useful. You can't dwell on the past. You have to look forward. You can't let it consume you. But in a movie where you can change the past, it is important. the movie arbitrarily sets rules about, no, you can't, but you can, which undermines the idea of accepting it. It's a mess. Story-wise, it's a mess. I get the idea, and it's a neat idea, and there's a nice message there.
I guess we'll get there when you can actually say what it is your gripe. There's a neon sign behind them that says Grayson's across the alley. Neat. Yeah. He talks to his dad on the phone. His dad's like, it's a long shot, my hearing tomorrow. I'm not going to get parole. Like, don't worry about it. And he's like, hey, you remember that song your mom used to sing, whatever? And we get this cool shot where it's kind of surreal, and I'm not 100% if this happened or if it's just in his memories, but he goes to the house that he grew up in because he's physically there outside, but then like we kind of go inside, and I think then we're in the memory, and then like his younger self runs by him, and it kind of cuts back to reality. It's a little bit of a mishmash of
but it's an
things.
interesting way to do a flashback.
But it's very cool. We go back and we see a happy home, him and his mom and his dad, and she's cooking, and this whole thing about tomatoes. Oh, I forgot. I need another can, and sends the dad out to get them. And this is very important in the film. What I thought was weird, after seeing it a bunch of times, is it's a blue can of tomatoes. She says, yeah, I have one. I need a second one. But it says green, not blue. And he jokes, blue, not green. And young Barry is like, no, Dad, it's blue, not green. But for the entire movie,
Hi, hungry, I'm Dad.
now and later, it's a blue can.
It's because he forgot. I don't know.
But that's what she already had, and it's what he got later. I don't know.
It's because he forgot, because he's a dad. He's
Okay.
an absent-minded dad. He let his wife get murdered.
We're
He's a
recording
bad
this on
dad.
Father's Day, just so you guys know, so shout out. But yeah,
Which year?
we watched this whole thing play out, and his dad leaves, goes to the store, and his mom's singing in the kitchen, dancing with him a little bit, and then he goes upstairs, hears his mom screaming, looks out the window, his dad's in the driveway, so he's letting the audience know there's no way his dad did it.
Which I appreciate.
Yes. Then they run down there. The mom is stabbed. Call 911. Oh my God! Right. And then we're as young Barry runs out of the house in tears. Then the Flash is standing right there, and the dad on the phone is like, "You still there, bud? Like, what's going on? Oh yeah, sorry." Yeah. And then the call ends. And yeah, I really like all of the family stuff in this movie because, as I've complained about before, this end of the world shit does not matter to me unless you can give me some personal stakes, some emotional investment.
Yes, you can't just say the world's ending and expect an audience to feel it. Not just because we've seen so many movies where this has happened, but also we live lives where like bad stuff happens that's not that, and that's enough to upset us. You can't just be like, oh man, the tidal wave, watch out.
Now, in this moment of sort of reliving that, and then the call gets cut off from his dad, like they have whatever the limits are of a inmate making a call. You get the little
It's like a collect call.
pre-recorded thing, yeah. He like flips out and just emotionally like hauls ass down the street, flash explosion of speed. He starts going so fast that he's like in some kind of black void of space, and then we start to see this cool effect of like his hand and then his face like melting apart digitally.
All the
and
frames
rolling
into one.
I thought that was really neat. And then he keeps going and he stumbles into this like sphere that's around him, and then this like Colosseum sort of design of rings, like each row of kind of seating would be like rings of time.
Sort of like zoetrope looking, where it's like each ring is the exact same thing, and subsequent rings are a different moment in time.
Yes. It's very cool. I like the way that time is visualized in this movie in a very new way.
And this is the beginning of both my complaint, but also...
It's not the beginning of your complaints, let's be real.
This is the continuation of my complaint. It's just one long complaint. No, that the CG, again, looks bad. And it feels so weird to say that on something that, like, the most skilled people in the world, huge groups of them, spent tons of time on, and a huge amount of money was poured into having them do this.
The biggest visual issues in this movie are in these scenes.
They are in these scenes, but it's specifically because these scenes are full of people's faces.
Yes.
Completely generated renditions of humans, and they're bad. They all look like clay and like weird glossy images.
Machete said, this is intentional. I told them I want that to look weird and fucked up. And I'm like, okay, except they look almost real. They're not like, I saw someone say, well, if you blurred the faces and obscured it in a way, or
do that then.
Or even like we just said about him in that void and the way that I can't even describe the way that they portrayed that was so cool. If you were to do something intentionally odd to them, then no one would be able to say like, oh, they did a bad job.
Yeah, and so they look bad, but at the same time, it's a really cool idea. Visually, it's a cool scene that, like you said, like the concentric rings going out looks neat. It looks really cool. It's just weirdly executed.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead every scene where it's a shot of the two flashes who knows why there are two flashes because you haven't said it yet. But one of them, the face looks fucked up. Like we've been doing split screen in movies for decades and decades. To mess that up doesn't make any sense to me. Because it's like they had two actors and then they CG'd one face and...
There's one split-second shot in the whole movie where I will agree with you on that.
Every time there's two of them, one of their face looks weird.
And that's when current Barry was about to punch young Barry. That's the only time in the entire movie where I thought they didn't look good. Because I thought specifically, for all the valid criticism of the VFX in this movie, that like the entire movie is CG because... Ezra's never in the room with himself, and I thought all of those scenes looked perfect to me.
No, I thought they looked so bad. Next time on your fourth viewing of this film, when there's and it seems weird because it's like when you watch Avatar in 3D and you look at an object in the background, it'd be like, it sounds like you're complaining, well, like the background object's blurry because you're supposed to be looking at
the foreground.
Yeah. But this is not the same because you can't have a shot where both of them are like chest up the same size and one of them's maybe like half a foot in front, but they're still about equal focus. Because I can look at both of them at the same time, and I do that, and like I get that I'm supposed to be looking at the future one who's talking, but I can look over to my left, and he's right there, clear, and his face looks like some weird, deep fake, just odd thing, and it kept happening over and over and over, and it was just like...
Yeah, I never got that at all.
We're doing split screen since like the beginning of film. Like that's one of the earliest gimmicks you do. You cut the film in half and you glue another one next to it.
Well, that's one thing that impressed me about it is that they didn't act within the parameters of that. They're never like always 3 feet apart or something like that. They're interacting and fighting and all these things together in a way that, to my dumb ass, was very convincing.
It bothered me every time.
Anyway, so he's in this vortex of time or whatever, and is...
The speed bubble. It's the speed force, and it's like the time bubble or the time...
The chrono bowl is what they called it.
Chrono bowl.
And so he's in this thing, and he's running, and he's going back through time, and you're seeing, the events of Batman and Wonder Woman on the bridge, and you're seeing... It's funny, because I think it goes all the way back to when Bruce and Barry first meet, and you hear Bruce say, "So you're fast," when he throws the Batarang at his head. And then it skips entirely everything in his life between that and when he was a child and his parents were still together, alive, whatever. And
together, that's true.
Yeah, right. But at a certain point, he like goes back. He sees his mom at the grocery store because it was acknowledged that like, didn't you go to the store this morning? Like, yeah, I forgot the tomatoes. Right. So he goes, and she's never going to forget him. Therefore, she's never going to send his dad away, and nothing's going to happen. And so,
but isn't that the moment where evil Flashman?
Yeah. That's what I'm getting to. Yeah. And so he goes to the store, and he, like time has practically stopped. We see droplets of water suspended in air from a mop, and he sees his mom for the first time in God knows how many years. It's very emotional. He like sets the can of tomatoes gently in her cart and says, "I'll see you soon, Mom."
Don't forget the tomatoes.
Yep, exactly. It's a very nice little scene. It cuts back to the Chrono Bowl. He starts to see his life unfolding, and you see birthdays and graduations and all these little events, and his parents are there, and his mom is blowing the streamers, and it like all of these milestones in his life now that they got to live together, and I really like that. And at the 18th birthday cake, you see this freaky fucking thing pop out from one of the higher rows.
And there's a moment of like, is this part of the ring or what is this?
Yeah, because there's like a weird spark thing, and he kind of looks up there, and then this big nasty monster fucking thing dives down, pounces on him, and kicks him out. And where he lands is right where he started, back in front of the house. But he goes inside, and his parents are there. His mom's alive, his dad, they're both older. He's floored to be in this situation, and he's asking his mom, like, how was your day? How was your last 18 years of your life? How have you been? It's a great scene, and of course, like every other scene where he uses his powers, he's then like devouring the food that she gives him, and then he hears a sound and looks outside, and there's another him. And so he's like, oh, shit. And his parents like, what the fuck? And he's like, I've got to shit right now. I got to shit. And flashes out and catches himself. And there's that shot you see in the trailer of like, you off my face. You stole my, whatever. And they first see each other. And Ben hates it, and I love it.
This is where I'm like, oh, God, I thought the other version of him was annoying. And this guy is insufferable.
To me...
You cowards, just give me a Michael Keaton Batman movie again.
I feel like
stupid garbage.
I feel like this is where the movie really starts. Because the first time, I was very entertained the whole time, in a room of people that waited for hours to get into this thing. We're all there for it.
There were Flash cosplayers in front of me at
nice.
The movie theater.
See, but on Thursday, it was like dead. It was maybe 2/3 full.
Thursday at 10 at Valley River, there was a guy in a reverse Flash suit, a guy in a regular Flash suit, 2 others, yeah.
Yeah, not the case at Cinemark. It was pretty dead. People were kind of chuckle at stuff. At the other ones, it was like when people show up on screen for cameos, everyone's like, yeah! Not happening at this other one. And so I'm watching it in a totally different atmosphere. And it is just like, the first act of this movie isn't as good as I remembered.
It drags.
Part of it is like him late for work and all that bullshit that doesn't matter. And at this moment is when I'm like, oh, right, now this is when the movie really starts. Everything else was kind of a prologue to this.
I'm like, oh my God, this is another, I have to watch a 40-year-old man pretend to talk like a teenager with weird made-up slang, and this is beefing, man.
It beeves. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. I criticize The Dark Knight Returns for the weird slang in that one. I love the weird slang in this one. I don't know how an actor could have this good a chemistry with themselves.
Ezra Miller's a good actor.
But
the things I don't like about this character is not a fault of his performance.
But it's just fantastic. I really...
Their performance, oh my God.
I love the banter between these two. And very quickly in this scene, as they're hiding up in the bedroom, there's sort of like, oh my God, you never stop talking. Like, you are insufferable. Oh my God. I'm starting to see what people mean. Like, this amuses me.
It's not a whole movie about that guy, right?
Because at this moment, you have a Barry who's survived some shit and who's had some tragedy in his life. And his role in the Justice League has been the sort of wisecracking Spider-Man young person. And in this situation, the stakes are deadly serious to him. And this other kid comes from a different world where he's had everything handed to him. He has no fucking clue what loss or struggle or anything really is. And so I love the idea of making this guy now have to be the responsible one. And it amuses me endlessly as it goes on of how dumb this other guy is. That's way dumber than his previous version already was.
Insufferable is the word, because I
love it so
all
much.
The stupid antics, I was like, oh my God.
I don't know if you appreciated this, the background dressing of the bedroom. There's always like, oh, hey, look, there's a fucking
was there a Miss Marvel
Avenged Sevenfold poster or something. That's cool. But in this one, there are posters for the previous Batman directors. There's Inception for Nolan, and there's Mars Attacks, of all things, for Tim Burton.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that at all.
That's pretty cool.
I did see the Mars Attacks poster, but I didn't remember that he was the director.
That's an odd choice.
Who's a big fan of that movie?
Dude, I watched it again last year on Halloween, and I'm like, man, this does not hold up. It's bizarre. And so here he's like sort of explaining what happened to his younger self without being able to tell him, like, oh yeah, but your mom got murdered, your dad's in prison. Like, he's trying not to meddle, but they're talking to each other. They're in a room. He's like, this is bad. And then he realizes, oh shit, what day is it? Oh my God, this is the day that I got my powers. Like, if you don't go there, then maybe I don't exist. And so they go down there.
Which it wouldn't happen, because that's not the way the rules of this movie work.
Yeah, which I appreciated at the time. That was like, I think that's a reasonable fear in completely uncharted territory, but that I don't think that would happen.
You already changed everything every way, and you still exist.
Yeah. So he goes to the crime lab where he works.
There are two of you.
A funny gag, like, where was the first moment we saw Barry phasing, because he does it by himself first. It was when Iris came over and he's like, "You want anything to drink?" And she goes, "Oh, can I have a beer?"
That's right.
And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And he opens the fridge and there's nothing but rotten broccoli, and he like steps next to the fridge and phases through the wall to go get it.
That moment was fun because they don't explain it. It's just like you can use your imagination. How could a fast guy do that? And you can kind of fill it in.
He comes back and hands her the drinks, and she's like talking in all seriousness, and he opens the shaken up beer in his face, and I just like the classic comedy moment. That was like a 90s bit.
It was funny.
That amused me.
But then they undermine it later, and this is another thing why I don't like where this movie goes with this aspect of now Flash learning his powers, because it felt like it was supposed to be his origin movie because he never got one. Just in the sense of like, you learn his whole backstory, you see his backstory, you watch the Wayne parents get murdered, you see him make all these mistakes with his new powers and this and that, and it's like, I don't give a shit. I already know who the Flash is. I already watched like a movie with him. I watched 2 versions of that movie with him.
Because that's what I was thinking. It's like, man, Affleck has been in... Oh, wait, technically this is the 3rd one? It seems like way more after all these years.
Seems like a ton. So I know this guy. I know what he can do. Even if I didn't read comic books, these other movies exist where I've seen him. So like, let that just be.
And Flash was already pretty proficient with his powers when we found him.
Yeah, he knew what to do. And if, he's not a hard character to understand.
Sure.
He goes fast. That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
So to make me watch like a weird half origin story of him in the middle of this movie that has a more interesting story than that, and also he's played by a more annoying version of himself. Like I'm not enjoying this.
Well, I enjoy the reason that they recreate the origin moment here, and that is that he sets him up in the lab. Okay, we got to open this window, and we set you up right here. So the lightning, he's like, wait, you want to fucking hit me with lightning? What the fuck?
No, so I don't want to hit you with lightning. I want to hit the chemicals with lightning.
Yeah, and you'll be bathed in them. Like, no.
That is a funny joke.
When I first saw it, I was like, okay. And then as he's trying to hold him, like, snap out of it, damn it. As he's trying to hold him still and keep him in that chair, the lightning strikes and it hits the chemicals, and then it hits present day Barry, which I don't know what else to call him. Old Barry, young Barry.
If we're going to use comic book terms, Barry Prime.
Barry Prime.
Yeah.
All right. And so hits Barry Prime and goes through him and hits young Barry. Is there a special name for that?
Young Barry or Barry, yeah.
Okay. Regular Amazon Barry.
Yes, correct.
Got it. Okay. So when I first saw that, I was like, well, why didn't he move out of the way? But I think it's sufficient enough that he's distracted by trying to fucking hold dude in his chair.
It's just, it felt contrived to me.
It is.
And like, so now...
Because they were like, okay, how do we take away his powers and make him dependent on this other guy?
And it wouldn't have bothered me as much if it's just you get to see young Barry learn how to use his powers and Barry Prime still has his powers. But it's a contrivance not just to get that, but also to take away the powers from the guy who knows how to use them.
I think that was more so the point, yeah.
And that's obnoxious.
I like it. I'm so amused by this. What I forgot to mention...
What about it's Batman, but then like he gets hit on the head, and now he's just like a big guy working on a train track. And like, so it's no Batman stuff.
You hate that episode so much.
Only because I'm here to watch Batman, not this thing.
Okay, so... we got on a tangent, but
it's
what
Superman.
we're talking about...
He has no cape. I don't want him doing the gay cape shit. He's going to fight a big spider. You know what I mean?
We're talking about phasing. That derailed us for a moment. So when they first get to the lab, he scoops up young Barry in his arms, and we see them both phase through the wall. And again, young Barry has no fucking idea what's happening, and just like, and we see his eyeball touch the door, and then it zooms in on all the molecules. We see them like pass through each other, really interesting. And then, we see him recreate the moment.
And great for people on a rewatch. This is one of the scenes that really stood out to me when they end up on the other side of the door and they're both standing up. A great example of one of them looks like a horrible monstrosity.
Okay.
Right after that moment, if anyone goes and sees this again, watches it later, that's a great...
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
I
can see it in my head right now.
Okay, fine. And I do not have the eagle eye that you have for these things, I guess, but...
Half the people in this life and real life that we're in are lizards. You don't even see it. I see the things you don't see.
And here we were talking bad about Adrenochrome Lady, but The scene right after the lightning is great because this is where we realize that Barry Prime has lost his powers when he scoops up young Barry and they go to phase into the wall and they just walk into the wall and he falls on his back. Young Barry falls like over his fucking face. Like it's a really good slapstick beat. And he like gets in his running position and then the music cue happens and the zoom in on his face all serious. And then he fucking runs like when the cable guy runs lines and you hear the squeaking on the basketball court, he's running lines.
I was trying to...
And you hear the squeaking of his shoes, and he's doing that weird fucking flailing his arms thing, and he's got like the gazelle move that he does or whatever. And it is one of the funniest fucking moments, visual gags in the whole movie.
I'd like that.
Yeah.
I laughed.
So good. Again, it's like when they're fighting Steppenwolf or when they're fighting Superman when he first comes back, and it cuts to Flash, who's just like still in that George Costanza laying out on the bed pose, like you're not even gearing up to run. What are you doing? Like you want me to like this? Like I'm gonna okay. So I like that they're making fun of his weird posture.
Yeah, but you arbitrarily chose to give him that weird posture. That's mean.
I would say it's the one benefit of changing directors with these characters. It's like, well, hey, at least we fixed that. So they get back to the apartment. Like, oh, this place looks nicer than I expected, which is what Iris basically says when she walks in. And he's like, well, yeah, Mom helped me decorate. And, we get all these little moments of their different upbringings where Barry Prime is sadly like, yeah, classic mom, just like, you have no idea, dude, and sort of have this, let's fucking digest everything that just would happen.
You're in a world with another you? Come on. Just once.
I mean, I've seen it before. I've touched it. Come on. No. So let's digest everything that just happened. How am I supposed to get my powers back? And then young Barry's like, wait, I have the power? Oh, my God. And just starts running around like an idiot, just so gleefully stupid in the most, like, pure Dumb and Dumber way. And I am all about it. And I love the scene where he's like, yeah, Speedy Gonzales. I've done it a million times. But he just, like, has this dumbass grin on his face and he can't stop himself and he runs and, burns up his clothes and crashes into a...
That scene is entertaining.
Fucking truck carrying marching band equipment or whatever, and winds up naked in the middle of a street and causing a massive blackout and helicopters overhead and all that shit. Cuts back, walks in, he's holding the tambourine over his dick. And he's like, what happened? He's like, nothing, why would you ask? And sort of like sideways shimmies into the bathroom, puts on a robe. And then he's trying to explain to him, like, phasing. He's like, okay, so, when you speed up the molecules in your body so fast, and he's like, oh, wait, you mean, oh, my God. And he falls through the floor. The robe stays on the floor, and you hear the scream from down below, and he comes back up holding, like, a cooking pot over his junk. Not even, it's funny that they're, like, embarrassed of their own nudity, but, Barry Prime, like, looking away and holding up the robe, like, here you go. He's like, are you always so tired and hungry and naked? He's like, no, I'm not naked because I have a suit for this. If you listen to one fucking thing that I say.
Yeah, you get one of those. You can't keep not listening to what he says because then it becomes like you either are such a moron, which doesn't track, or you're just desperate to get these...
I mean, it kind of does that this Barry is dumb.
No, because he's like a forensic guy. He's not dumb. He's just obnoxious. And so you're so desperate to keep making this joke where he keeps bumbling. If only he didn't do that. Oh, my God. No.
I don't know, man.
I do know. I'll tell you what.
I like Beavis and Butthead, Adam Sandler.
I do love Beavis and Butthead. But they're morons.
Yeah.
That's why they can keep doing that.
And this guy is a moron. That's how he's portrayed, and I like it. So then, in this scene, he was like, well, wait, who's this guy? Who's this guy on the couch, right? And I might be skipping a little ahead. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's my roommate, Gary. And then you see the annoying coworkers from earlier wake up in bed together, It's like, who are these fucking freaks? Like, oh, yeah, that's my other roommates, whatever.
It's a nice idea that, like, he is annoying, sure, but it's also having the stability of a not murdered mom made him a person who was able to have friends.
Yes.
Isn't that the whole issue in the other movies is that, like, I don't really have friends. I've never really known people.
Well, and it's addressed in this movie of, like, I mean... Batman's kind of my only friend, And like he goes, your loss made you a hero. He's like, it also made me alone. He's like, well, you want to get a bite to eat? We could hang out tonight. And he says, not this time. Maybe another time.
No, you're annoying. I know.
The writer in me was like, why did he say 2 lines that could have easily been 1? I know they cut out, I don't know, an hour of this movie from the original cut. Like, why would you not cut an extra line when he says, not this time, maybe another time? And then later we get our answer on that.
We get a Back to the Future joke, which is neat, but
we do get a Back to the Future joke.
You can't just have a big tentpole comic book movie where they make a bunch of jokes about Back to the Future and blah, 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 and then...
What amuses me, though,
do it again.
This is a very specific joke for people who either read IMDb trivia
or have seen the stills of Eric Stoltz as
or have
Marty
seen
McFly.
The Netflix series, The Movies That Made Us.
I didn't see any of that, but I've just seen the images of Eric Stoltz used to be Marty McFly.
Yeah, where they cast him and they actually started filming with him and were like, this guy sucks, can we get Michael J. Fox? And so I was amused by those jokes. Oh, I'm remembering the part that I missed. He's like, oh, are we so tired and naked and all this stuff? There's that joke, and Barry Prime starts to break it down, and he turns over, young Barry's falling asleep. He's like, all right, I'll tell you tomorrow. They cut to tomorrow. They're walking around in public, and he's telling them what's going on. People start to panic. What's going on? They go to a Buffalo Wild Wings or someplace that has big TVs on the wall, and Zod is here. And then we get an unnecessary flashback when Barry Prime tried to come and help, but he just got his powers and he was inexperienced.
Because it's supposed to be another origin story, Spider-Man wrestling and...
But here's what I dislike about this.
I dislike that, the thing I just said. I dislike...
We have revisited the streets of Metropolis during the Superman Zod fight in a brilliant way. This way feels very much like we're reusing some footage in the background and then we reshot this stuff in the foreground and you remember that, right? And it did not land for me.
No, it's like Rashomon. We're just going to keep seeing, even in this new universe where it's different people, they're going to keep cutting back to this scene when the city's getting destroyed by Zod, but from a different angle. And
yeah, I didn't like that. Anyway, he has all this guilt about it, and then he goes, but shit, if there's no Superman in this universe, maybe I can find him. Maybe I can find the whole Justice League, right? And so they're back at his apartment. That's when we meet the roommates, and he's like, all right, I'm going to Google these people, and it's like, Victor Stone, star quarterback, great, so he's fine. He hasn't had a horrific accident yet.
I saved him from his tragedy.
Shucks. And then, he calls Aquaman's dad, he's like, yeah, I'm looking for Arthur Curry, and he's like,
he's talking to Boba Fett.
Dog? He's like, yeah, but I mean, you're married to the Queen of Atlantis.
Yeah, Atlantean princess.
And the camera just pans slightly to a woman who I would describe as maybe like your average Walmart shopper, perhaps. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. I got to go,
Just hangs up on him.
Like, yeah. And
how dare you remind me of my wife?
Yeah. And I always feel bad for people who get cast as like, now you be the ugly bitch.
There's that anecdote from Home Alone. Buzz's girlfriend,
woof,
and
but
it's a
him
boy
dressed as...
Yeah, they're like, we can't do that to a young
Buzz
girl.
dressed up as a girl.
Yeah.
In this scene, he's like, all right, so Arthur Curry was never born. I think he looked up the Clark Kents and there wasn't anybody, like he doesn't exist, and looked up Diana Prince and they don't exist. And so then he's like, fuck, none of the Justice League exists. And he starts rattling off all these names and he says something about Batman.
Batman does exist. No one knows who he is.
The annoying girl goes, I'm Batman. And he's like, what did you just say? And she was like mid-drink of a LaCroix or something, and it's like, and burps it out. And what I said about the Lego Batman shit with this is going to air first, so you guys haven't heard that episode, but I don't like people making fun of my guy. And yet, the dumbass in me was really amused by that. And on rewatches, I enjoy it just as much. But then, that's when Gary on the couch is like, oh, no, he's real, but no one knows who he is. And Barry's like, well, I fucking know who he is. Cut to them getting out of a taxi. This is the shot we saw in the trailer at the gates of Wayne Manor from 1989's Batman, which is amusing because Returns used a totally different model of a different house.
And isn't the house the dilapidated house from Batman versus Superman or Justice League?
No, it's the 89 house.
Externally?
Yeah.
I think I know this more than you if I had to.
Okay. Now that we can agree on. So he's like, man, what is this fucking dump? The door is open, the whole place is overgrown, decrepit, and they go in. That's when we hear the Chicago record playing. They walk through the fucking...
Look at this cool shit.
The armory from Alexander Knox, where he's like, he must be king of the Wicker people.
That made me laugh out loud because I had just watched, like the night before, the intro to Batman 89, just to have a little bit of like that in my memory. And so to see that right after, look at this cool shit.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I really like that. Then they walk through, and there's a funny gag where like he sees like an easel and all these paints around. He's like, oh, I didn't know you were a painter. They're good. And he makes this, like it hangs on him for just a beat after that. And just his face is so good. I will say that as much as I don't like Bruce being funny, Ezra was the only cast member who was given a better chance to shine in the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League because they gave him a lot of those comedic lines, and he sold them.
Yeah, that's Joss Whedon's strength is comedy, so lean on that guy because he's the funny character.
Yeah, and when they tried to do it to other characters, it didn't work, but I really like his comedic chops and that he's not in a deadly serious movie this time because just those little things with his face, the little grimace.
I know Michael Keaton Batman's a different Batman, but I just don't believe that Batman wouldn't be an amazing painter, and that's upsetting. You can't tell me that Batman can't
he wouldn't obsess over it until he was the best painter in the world.
Or just like, oh yes, in the reflection of the window I saw the perpetrator, so now I'll recreate it by sketching a perfect image of him. Like, I don't buy it. It's a funny joke though.
So they go downstairs and there's this like servant's kitchen. There's a joke about the servant's bells up there, which I haven't seen Downton Abbey, so I didn't really get the connection, but I kind of get the gist. There's like a flip-flop on the ground. There's boiling water on the stove, but there's nobody there. We see this long-haired dude with it like a mop of hair that covers his face for the sake of the stuntman here, who jumps out of the closet and starts flinging pots and pans and pizza cutters and all these things, kicking Barry Prime in the face, hitting him in the face again as soon as he gets up with the end of a fucking wine bottle or something. There's a pan thrown at young Barry, who again has the powers. And the way he dodges this random kitchen object and watches it go past his face is an identical recreation of throwing the batarang right by his face when he first meets Affleck in the other movie. And I'm dying at this because, the whole movie is hyped up as the return of Keaton and he was the fucking badass stoic one, and all this. And I'm like, yeah, but he's also the weirdest one. And I love that they let him be fucking weird because this is like 80s Keaton where he just got to be goofy as shit.
Do you like eating in here? I don't know if I've ever been in here before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I loved it too.
But even it's like the kind of shit he would do in Beetlejuice, or like even that weird movie he did with Larry David, like he loves doing goofy shit, and I think has spent a decade or more trying to solidify, like, I'm a serious actor though, guys. And now that he's comfortable in that, like, sure, I'll be Batman again. Yeah. Oh, but I can get weird? Yeah, sure, let's get weird, And he looks like a fucking overgrown biker or something.
His, that scarf is such a nice touch. Like, he's some weird,
he's got the little ascot or whatever it's called.
Very cultured, and,
Yeah. After they stop fighting, they're like, who the hell are you? Because they're expecting to see Affleck, and he's like, I'm the guy who lives here. And they're like, well, we're looking for Bruce Wayne. And then everyone kind of relaxes, and it cuts to he's back cooking. And he's like, so you're telling me. And so we skipped all the exposition dump of a recap, and we just sort of get the cliff notes here as he's trying to process that information. Very good choice, because we don't need every character to, repeat the plot. Then we get the whole spaghetti analogy that you were talking about, where he holds up the two pieces of dry spaghetti, and he's like, oh, so you probably saw a time travel movie where you think if you go back here, then we're going to bend this piece. Then there's one future and the second future. He's like, but actually, he turns them, makes like a intersection. It's like it creates a fulcrum. But more accurately, and he just dumps the whole pot of noodles, is like, it's kind of a shit show. And there will be inevitable intersections along the way, but it's not linear as you're making it look. Because Barry was confused, like, I didn't go back before you were born. Why are you a different guy?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good wrap-up.
It's an interesting idea. It still doesn't make sense, but it's an interesting way to justify all of these changes.
Yeah, I think it works. So they're explaining the Zod invasion and how there's no Justice League, and Batman was our strategist. We need a team leader. We need somebody to help. And he's testing the sauce in his own mouth, and then he shoves it in Barry's mouth, which is sort of a repeat of the Lex Luthor gag that he does to the senator, the Jolly Rancher, but it's still funny. He's about to start eating, and young Barry is just like staring like a fucking hungry dog. He's like, "Here, you fucking eat it." They're like, "So, will you help us?" And in perfect Michael Keaton delivery, he, it's like a close-up on his face. He looks all serious, then he just goes, "Pass," and walks out of the room casually. Like, wait, no. And
it's like Gotham City, I did my job. It's like one of the safest cities in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's fine.
He's retired.
Yeah.
Because they're like, "So you're the Batman?" He's like, "Kind of." There's even a joke there where young Barry's like, "Wait, Bruce Wayne is Batman?" Like,
Why did you think we were here?
I thought it's for the cousins' dinner. Like, that's still a good joke. Now, here's the problem I have. Because Bruce says he doesn't care. They leave. And then he's like, "All right, well, we're going to use his Batcave." And he's like, "See that little port over there?" He's like, "Remember when I taught you how to do the phasing?" And so they're just like out on the property, and there's this like sewer entrance thing. And he stands on top of it, again, mid-sentence, just starts using his powers and falls through. You're telling me the guy who had to drive like miles of backwoods and then is just going to have an access port in the yard,
a
to the
manhole that just takes you right down into it?
Like, no, I didn't like that one bit.
Well, it's important because you took all that time with the Back to the Future thing. So now we don't have enough time to get a more interesting
wander
way.
through the labyrinth of Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
What amuses me, again, is very serious Barry Prime jumps on the old-fashioned Keaton Bat computer, and we see it's all got those weird little islands of cliffs, sort of the way that the Burton Batcave was set up.
It was beautiful to see
so cool.
that place brought to life again, but
yeah.
even better. That's a thing where modern technology shines in this movie.
Yeah.
Everything like that. Seeing all the Keaton-era stuff come to life modern.
Yeah,
is
very
really
cool.
Special.
And a good mixture, like even when, a few minutes later, when Barry starts talking to Batman, going like, "I know you're watching me from somewhere. You've got cameras in this room, And it cuts to him, and he's on an old, thick, like boxy laptop. Like it has modern video capability, but it's an old-ass fucking hunk of junk kind of thing, you know, like an early laptop. Like he still has this sort of dated technology.
Or that like the Bat computer is dated, but also not.
Yeah. Like it's still the same physical guts of it, but he's upgraded the rest of it with the times.
Yeah. I just love these monitors.
Yeah.
Heavy
CRTs are great. But I like how he's dead serious. He's on the mission. And then young Barry acts exactly how we saw in Justice League. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a Bat Cave," and he's zipping around the whole place. And he's like, "Oh my God, the Batmobile. I used to see this on the news when I was a kid." And I think perhaps the biggest crime of this movie is that they make a big deal about showing us the Batmobile. They made a big deal about putting it in the teaser trailer where he pulls back the fucking cover and then they don't show it, right? They've been fucking edging us on this Batmobile the whole time. And then the most we ever see it get used is Barry passed out eating Cheetos inside of it.
Is there merchandise relating to that for this movie?
Oh, yeah, there's the Batmobile, the 89 Batmobile for sale.
Yeah.
Now.
Made new for this to sell. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Great to see it, though.
I was also disappointed when I saw the toys and the original designs of the Batwing, because the original Batwing from 89 is a thing of beauty. All of those vehicles were just fantastic. But functionally, the way the new one works is awesome. Really happy with that. But anyway, he's talking to Bruce through the computer. "You lost your parents. I'm just trying to save mine, There's a cut. I think he passes out or whatever. They both pass out. And he wakes up next to coffee, and Bruce is down there.
And there's like a dossier now that says like, "Oh, Clark Kent, here's all the," or whatever.
Well,
the
it's
super
like,
entity.
Yeah, it's like name redacted, and it's in this fucking base in Siberia. And so it's like, "Oh shit, okay, we know where we're going. Like, will you help us?" And he's like, "I'll help you find your guy, and then I'm out."
Well, I don't know if it's this scene or the later scene that's similar to this, but I like because there's a beat which sort of is the opposite of what Ben Affleck Batman said, where he's like,
I think it's later.
Oh, okay, about the parents and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. When he brought him his coffee and all
He's
that.
like, "This is why I'm going to help you, because you know what? Like, my parents died, but you did it.
He goes, I spent my whole life fighting crime in a cape like that was going to bring my parents back. He goes, but you know what? You actually did it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm game.
Like, more power to you. I thought that was pretty cool.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough. And this is going to sound stupid because people are going to be like, well, this is the movie they gave you. But a movie that focused even more on the Flash meeting Michael Keaton Batman and working together. Not just because I want to see more Michael Keaton, but because it's like, it feels like we had so much stuff where its only purpose was to get us to this point anyway.
Sure.
So like cut that stuff away or figure out a way to get here quicker.
I do think the first act could have been streamlined a little bit, and it is the weakest part of the movie, which is great, though, because there have been other DC movies. If we cut back to Suicide Squad, first Wonder Woman, BVS, we always complain about, dude, that last half hour, but just a CGI fuckfest. Like, this movie has the opposite effect.
They get their boring shit out of the way early.
This movie has the opposite effect where, like, even if you're not totally sold in the beginning, it definitely takes off by this point. I'd say we're probably an hour in, maybe 45 minutes in at this point, and this is really when it starts to take off. Again, I don't think the movie really begins until young Barry shows up, and that's when it feels like this movie feels.
We're getting to the point.
know?
Like, what's the point of this story? Why are we here?
Exactly.
What are you trying to tell us?
Yeah. So here we go to rescue Superman. Again, Batman's like, I'll help you find your Superman, and then I'm out. This is one of my favorite and least favorite sequences in the movie. They're like, how are we going to get to fucking Russia or whatever? And you see the new Batwing lower from the top, and that's when he makes his big entrance. And the whole like, oh my God, I'm Batman. You know, he had to say it, had to be done.
Wasn't there, I feel like there's something happens in the movie, like bats fly or something like that, but it ends up being, I'm Batman, and then the sound of clapping, because it's like something physically happening in the world, but it ended up being like he says, I'm Batman, and then there's applause in the movie.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. What I noticed was I was so used to seeing it on the trailer, but the way they used his musical cue, his original theme, while he's saying it, made it feel a lot different in the film. Yeah, so then they get in the Batwing, the new version, and they're flying, and, you know, the two Barrys in the back seat, like, well, why don't you ask him? Like, it's like, I don't know this Batman. I don't fucking, you know. Keaton just being stoic, straight-faced like he always was, which I like that the moment he's back in the suit, he's Batman. He's not that weird guy that you saw in the beginning. You know, once this goes on, I'm that fucking dude, you know.
Don't talk to me when I'm playing jazz.
There's that sort of, like, I was thrown off in the trailer. I think I said this about Affleck in Justice League, too. There was one shot where he yells, and I was like, that's weird, because the whole rest of the time, he talks in his low voice, like this, you know. And he's like, you're both strapped into an ejector seat. I'm like, whoa, hey, what are you doing? You know, in the scene, it's not that bad, but I wish that they just, like, you know, it's a superhero movie. You're in a plane. You would have those little earpiece, you know. You don't need to use your Batman voice.
Yeah.
But then there's the whole like, and where's your parachute? And he just drops out without saying anything. Like, perfect, love it. And then here, this is the joke I made when you came over today. They're down on the ground and they got to go way up to this fucking basic fortress, military base. And so young Barry zips up. He's in the Flash suit, you know, runs up there so he doesn't burn up his clothes. Then Barry Prime grabs onto Batman. It zooms out, and he's got his full leg wrapped around him, like you're going to scoop me up like I did earlier, right?
Leia.
Like Vicky Vale.
Leia up or something. Yeah, or Vicky Vale.
Yeah. And then it cuts back to the close-up on Keaton's face, and it's just like a motionless glare, like, get the fuck off of me. And again, I love the subtle beats in this movie, and then he grabs him by the back of his belt, and they fly up there. The way he gracefully lands and then just drops Barry and continues walking. He walks out of the frame. And they're like, oh, where did he go?
I'm the slowest one now.
Follow the footsteps, you know. There's this giant fucking, like, silo thing. They got to go down. And because they're sneaky, you can't use flash powers or anything. They're, like, climbing down. One thing that was very stupid here is that one of them... Oh, it's young Barry, because he's in the Flash suit. He accidentally steps on, like, one of those pedal trash cans.
As if he's not able to catch something that he's accidentally knocked
exactly,
over.
Yeah. He steps on this pedal trash can, and then you see a shovel start to teeter and just slowly fall, and he's watching it like, no. And, you know, it hits the ground, and I'm like, you realize you're dealing with a superhero, right? That's his whole thing.
It's because they thought that's such a funny joke. Mm-hmm. That's way better than coming up with some other way to get an awesome fight scene with Batman.
Yeah. I mean, clearly a guy in a big red suit's pretty conspicuous as it is. So.
If only he had the ability to search the entire base in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, right.
Maybe if he had like speed powers, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and if the place just flickered for a second and no one knew.
He could take the keys from all the guards. He could disarm all the guards. He could open every door.
Yeah.
Man, it's like, there's a
but
lot of cool ways to use a fast
power. But also,
power.
he got his powers today, and so we're giving them a benefit of the doubt.
I didn't think of any of that in the movie. I only thought that was dumb that he knocked that over.
Yeah.
But as soon as that fight scene starts, I was like,
Yeah. And so
my pants were down.
This is what I mean by best worst moment. They get caught. All these people in the labs or whatever are looking at him, and then all these armed guards come out. The first shot is fired. Young Barry panics, but I think he kind of nudges him out of the way of the first bullet, right? Because he's like, I can't move. What do I do? Right? And he just barely tilts his head. And then all of them fire at once, and he's like, I don't know what to do, so he moves his body, and Barry Prime starts puking everywhere. And then there's more guns, everyone coming in. And
that puke effect was amazing.
It was gross.
Yeah.
It's like fucking Nickelodeon green,
the
man.
amount of matter that came out of his body.
I love it. A good puke gag, man, like in I Love You, Man, where Paul Rudd pukes in Jon Favreau's face is one of my favorite gags. Oh, my God. If you guys can hear that sound, I'm sorry. There's birds nesting in my attic like they do every year. I always forget to board it up in the winter. So this is happening, and then Batman makes his presence known from above, and everyone looks up. He just makes a little quip like, this is going to hurt. I wish he hadn't said anything. He swoops down.
He says, he's on the edge, and he goes, ay caramba.
Hey, it is a nostalgia fest. Nobody better lay a finger on my butterfinger.
Eat my shorts, man.
So he jumps down, and this is a shot from the trailer, the first time we saw him in action in the first proper trailer, and I was like, oh, I don't like that. That's weird. They animated him. He's swooping around and doing somersaults, and that's goofy looking. Like, he doesn't do that. That's weird. And I hate how he enters the fight and swoops down and looks all CGI weird. And then, once he's down there, he fights exactly like he used to fight, but with the benefit of technology, like homing, batarangs. He shoots the guy with the grapnel like Affleck did in the warehouse scene to pull him closer to get punched. He roundhouse kicks a dude in the face. Like, he does all these things that are normal, believable, classic Batman moves that also work great in a modern action movie.
Well, because it's not just the benefit of the technology of the character, but the benefit of
how it's shot. Like,
30 years of filming action scenes with...
Like, even in the nightmare sequence of Affleck that's so good, you could still see the guards with guns running up to get punched when they should be shooting from a distance. You don't see any of that with this. Like, it's a flawless execution once he's on the ground.
It's everything I complained about when we watched the original movies of like, I don't believe this guy can move or do anything.
Yeah, I believe this guy fights. Like, there's shots in '89 where you could see it's Dave Lee, the stunt double, and like
Ballerina Man.
It was not. No, he's the motion double, but the actual fighter was a different guy. And so in this one, I never questioned for a moment that was Michael Keaton roundhouse kicking that dude. It looked great.
Yeah, it filled me with glee.
Yeah, his best fight scene of all time. Like,
it's so nice that he gets
justice. Yeah, totally. Because I immediately thought back to like the Batman Returns scene where. They're like, burn, baby, burn. And then the Triangle Circus is in the streets fucking shit up, and he's like, he bends in half and spins around, because he can't move right. And so, that's how he's got to duck a baseball bat or something, And this scene was just fucking amazing. And then he does this move a couple times where more guys start firing and he turns his back to them and holds up his cape, because we've established from his very first scene in the first movie he's bulletproof, and now it's advanced to his new suit that his whole cape can withstand that. And so he is a human shield several times for the guys, which I love. They take everybody out and they go into the scrotum, into the giant scrotum. Yes, which it looks more like a boob, honestly, if you're gonna make that joke. But
well, you can have a scrotum with one testicle.
I wouldn't know anything about that. And so they go in and they are there to rescue Cal. And my first regret about the marketing of this movie,
choices you made in your life.
Yes.
happen while watching this movie.
Yeah, I'm starting to look back at my mistakes. No, but had it not been for Ezra's bullshit in real life and not being able to like, okay, you're gonna lay low. We're gonna let your co-stars market this movie. I think if not for that, holding back Supergirl from the advertising would have been awesome.
That would have been a really cool
reveal.
reveal.
We get there and then like, who the fuck is this? You know, we would have felt what the characters felt. And I love that Batman's just like, it's not him, let's go. And they're like, we gotta help her. Fine, you know.
I got more pescetti to eat. I gotta go.
Yeah. And so we have the two superheroes and the powerless Barry Prime. He picks her up, you know, he says, I got you. And they run out of there.
Great set design on that cage, though. That's a really cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Upsetting place.
And then in the tunnels that they're trying to get out, and there's like one guy who walks by with his coffee, and he looks at them, and they look at him.
And Batman does like to try and get him to flinch.
Yeah, Batman fucking just like he takes like he like stomps on the floor, takes half a step, does it twice, and then the guy like reaches for a gun, and we see young Barry just like, I got this, and
slam him into the wall.
Hilariously, like with both hands, like he kind of looks like he's doing like a raise the roof dance, sort of like.
Or it's like a cartoon character, like slamming into another one and launching him off screen.
Yeah. As he's doing that, he gets shot from behind. We see a bullet slow motion go through his knee as he's realizing, like, what the fuck? Oh, God. And so he's got a limp out of there. And then Barry Prime is carrying somebody. And then we have Batman, who's got a human shield them all again. Throws a gas canister at him and a bomb. I love this fucking shit. They got to climb all the way out the fucking silo. And so he finds this little platform. And actually, the third viewing, I was sitting next to these loud-ass motherfuckers. And, like, their food smelled and they're talking the whole time. After the first, 15 minutes, when Barry's late for work, I stood up and I just said, shut up, like the fucking guy on the rooftop in 89. You want your cut of this money or not? Shut up, with the cigarette dangling like Dan Aykroyd. No, and I just said that and I walked out. Because I'd seen it, this is my third time at this point. I walked out and I'm like, you need to give me another seat. And so when I moved at the end of the movie, and I'm not sitting next to anyone, there's two buffer seats on both sides. And I hear somebody go, what'd you think, Sam? I'm like, what the fuck? And this is that guy Tristan that used to play at Monkey Torture back in the day. I'm like, oh shit.
Long hair, Tristan.
Yeah. Which is funny because I said this to Gabe, who used to be in Monkey Torture, and he didn't know what I was talking about.
Your dad. I'm talking about your dad.
Who
is it?
My dad. But he goes, I love shameless nostalgia. He's like, but I was just waiting for him to be like, how much do you weigh? And sure enough, they do that in this scene where they're on this platform. It's like an old-fashioned elevator platform. Batman's not on it, and he pulls something out of his utility belt, and you think it's going to be some special gadget, and it's a tape measure. I love that joke. He measures the base of the fucking thing.
When he does that, you see him accidentally spell out a handful of credit cards that also have Bat logos.
No, that was Clooney. And he says, he's like, how much do you weigh? Like 140 and 140, and then he adds 80 pounds for the decrepit Supergirl there. And Batman sets a bomb underneath the fucking thing, which blows out everyone who's coming to kill them and fucking launches them into the air.
Not how bombs work, but cool anyway.
Yeah, it was great, though.
No, you see, if I take this bomb and I hold it in my hand and I point it down, it'll launch you into the air.
This is where the Siberian, snow fight from the trailers happens. The CGI here is goofy as hell, but we see Kara get tossed just past the limits of the shadow, of
you see
the midday shadow. And as the camera pans over, we see her being brought back to life into full strength. She just fucking rages out, and this is the first moment that she's been conscious so far in this movie, and she's a fucking badass. And I love that she is just a do not fuck around. She doesn't have any quips or anything. She is just ripping dudes apart,
slamming into people, throwing them. It's like, if you're super strong, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Knock them off the edge, throw them into the air, throw them into each other.
I love that shot where Keaton is swooping in slow-mo to punch a guy, but the guy's shooting. And we know Keaton's bulletproof at this point, but it's also close range. And she just fucking swoops between them. In one motion, takes the bullet in her palm and palms his face with it.
Yeah.
So many cool little things in here, but the whole thing looks completely animated.
Yeah, and I think
It's
your enjoyment of the
weightless.
movie or my enjoyment of the movie,
which are two very different things, let's say.
yours existed. No, that enjoying it as much as I did hinged upon me accepting that it looked bad. And going like, okay, I'm just kind of watching a cartoon.
Yeah.
There's scenes where there's humans, and then there's scenes where there are things that look like humans, and I'm supposed to think they're the same, and I know they're not. But if I just accept it, it's better than if I get hung up on it.
Yeah.
But everything after this point kind of looks like that. Every action scene.
I would say this is one of the worst ones to me. I thought they looked... Anyway, we'll get to that.
I agree with you there. Because it's all mainly people. It's not people in robot suits or planes.
Yeah, this is all just a bunch of dudes
close-ups
in military gear, and it just doesn't look right. Once they get Supergirl back to Wayne Manor, the Barrys are talking like...
My two berries.
It's not him. What do we do? And she wakes up and overhears this and, is confrontational immediately, because in the fight, I think she takes out all these guys in a fit of rage and then fucking passes out again because, she's still very weak. At this point, it's like, who are you? Where have you taken me? Barry Prime is using young Barry as a human shield, standing in the background behind him going, well, I was looking for Kal-El, and it's like, why are you looking for my cousin or whatever? And it's like, oh, because he was my friend. And now this is one moment in the movie where I could have used a little bit of a character reaction to, what do you mean he was your friend? What do you mean what world? Why are you guys the same?
Why are you hanging out with babies?
Just one little line of acknowledgement of right, because she just takes everything that's explained as yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, I'm waking up from a coma having lived my entire adult life in a fucking cage, and everything you're saying is totally...
I could let it slide as no concept of time, because he would be an adult too.
Yeah.
Because if she's been
but
held
she now says... No, he never made it to Earth. She says it.
No, she doesn't.
Yeah, she does.
No, but she's been locked up. So the entire time she's been locked up, she doesn't know anything that's happened.
She is the one who first tells us that Kal-El never made it to Earth.
As far as she
Later
knows.
we find out why, but right now she's the one who tells us this.
My only point being that she was locked up for a long time.
Yeah.
So in her mind, it could have been oh, he did get here, and that's why you know him, or like that. Why she's not pressing him no, he never got here.
No.
Why are you lying to me?
No. Anyway,
I had a moment in this scene, kind of in what you were saying. It would have been great if they could have not tipped that she was in this movie, because you have the reveal of Michael Keaton. You have to use that to sell this movie. There's a whole bunch of people who would not watch this movie without that.
The director said, and again, in a perfect world where Ezra wasn't a fucking maniac, the director said he fought the studio to try to keep Keaton a secret. Can you imagine? Can you fucking imagine the surprise? Oh my God.
Yeah. And then you
would have been the greatest thing in the world.
How many moments would you have had not knowing that before you saw some stupid reel of someone going, so how did you pull off this amazing cameo in this new film that releases tomorrow that we won't spoil it for people, but let's just say things are going to get nuts. No, it would have been good, but you just can't.
Yeah.
That's going to sell tickets. But the Supergirl thing, especially because she's not...
Could have waited. She's not a known entity.
Yeah, that would have been neat. I still, despite knowing that she was in this movie, had a thought to myself in the scene of going wow, that's really neat that we live in a world where this weird Supergirl exists in this movie with this cool costume, that a mainstream big budget movie can do this.
Yeah.
They had to do all that groundwork with all the boring stuff to get people on board with it early on in the film, but that this even exists, that's really neat.
Dude, I thought the same thing. When we first saw her, glimpses or whatever, in the real world, leading up to the film, I was like, that's an odd look for a Supergirl, interesting. And then I saw some people giving whatever deep cut comic references of oh, it's actually kind of like this, I'm like, all right, okay,
well, actually in my fan fiction, that's what she looks like, so.
Yeah. I saw some people complain should have been Melissa Benoist. So I'm like, she would have been neat for a cameo, but honestly, this Kara is believable to me for Henry's Kal.
Sure.
And that Krypton that we've seen. I buy her more for this world.
I agree, but also I just think this movie has enough cameos and stuff like that. You lay it on too thick and it starts to feel like the finale of a TV show or something like that, where and you're here, and you're here. Let that be. Let that just be somebody new for this weird world.
Yeah, and especially because it's supposed to be something's wrong. Not oh, we fucked up and got our favorite Batman back. And our favorite,
Wow.
And,
The Ninja Turtles exist in this universe?
oh man, that's what I need, the fucking Batman Turtles crossover. We take her up to the rooftop to get some sunlight, because Barry Prime knows this about Superman. Like, hey, take her up there, get her some sun, she'll be feeling better. We see her in the suit for the first time.
What a cool-looking suit.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's interesting. I didn't even notice it at first, but it's interesting where they attach the cape, because she just has like the red shoulders, but it's not the cape. It actually attaches like about at her shoulder blade. A very interesting design feature. And sort of like when we first saw Henry's, of like, oh, weird, he doesn't have the belt or the trunks, there's just kind of a lot of solid color here. It's an interesting choice. And with her, it's like from ribs down, it's all one color. It's
weird that they threw her in a cage with nothing but her hospital gown and her space alien suit.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just like, this is what you wear now. Throw this. Who fucking cares? It's strange. Convenient. Yeah, she goes up there, she gets her powers back, and young Barry's like, so, how you feeling? You feeling pretty strong? And she just like hawks a loogie and explodes one of Bruce's gargoyles on the roof there. It's an antique, come on. She's sort of like, she's still trying to figure out, like, okay, but how do I play into this shit?
I don't care about you.
And he's like, well, General Zod is here and whatever. And she's like, whoa, Zod is here? Oh, shit. And she just fucks off and, flies over to him. Now, here is where we get Endgame done wrong, in my opinion. Because in that movie, we got to see the characters observing from a great distance different angles of famous scenes. And in this one, we see from an aerial view, Supergirl's perspective, Zod and Feora confronting the General. But in this universe, there's no Kal, there's no Lois, and there's no second in command either. So I can only assume that that's Harry Lennox, General, that they're talking to. But we're seeing everything from behind, from really far away, basically telescope, It
works for Back to the Future when it's Marty McFly watching Marty McFly.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for this.
It just felt a little detached. And so Zod is like, I told you to fucking deliver the Kryptonian, and just slits the guy's throat.
I've still never seen the second half of that movie, so this is the first time I've seen any of this.
You've never
stuff.
seen Man of Steel?
I've seen the first half of Man of Steel.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I never saw any of the Zod stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, dude. Fuck.
Sorry, I was busy kissing girls.
You guys are weird. You guys are so weird.
I watched it and I was like, this is okay. I'm tired though. I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah, but you never all right. HBO Max. Subscribe today.
I have to finish Succession first. I can't be bothered to watch Man of Steel.
I'm rewatching the previous season before I catch up to the new one, because I always forget everything that's happening when you go a year in between, and then I don't care about things that are happening. And then by the time you remember, oh yeah, that was a cool thing.
Did I tell you how I started Succession? I was watching it on an airplane, and they didn't say, this is season 3. And so I started, and I was like, wow, what a creative way to start a TV show. I don't have any idea what's going on, and they don't care. This is neat.
Did you ever go back?
Yeah, after 3 episodes on that flight, I was like, wait.
God damn it.
Oh, okay.
See, I liked the first episode of that show because when they introduced Jeremy Strong's character, he is listening to the Beastie Boys on his headphones. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm already invested in this guy, so we'll see what happens. But where were we? Oh, yeah, so she fucks off, and we see the confrontation with Zod. Yeah, because in Man of Steel, spoiler alert to you, I guess, and no one else. We just celebrated its 10-year anniversary, this film. But
it's a movie.
In that scene, Superman is there. He surrenders himself for the greater good. And that's the first time he makes himself publicly known.
Does Zod use that device where he's going to poke him in the chest with the...
He takes him aboard the ship, and it's a whole thing. But at this moment, the one Kryptonian isn't there. The military doesn't know who the fuck he's talking about. And so he just slashes the dude, and they start shooting, and all this stuff happens. And
I love those costumes that they wear.
Yeah.
The heads that become transparent, or...
They call it a rebreather, I think. And
is that what they look like in that movie?
Yeah, except one of my chief complaints of this movie is that there's a pivotal moment where Superman has damaged his suit to the extent where he has to remove it. And then now he's getting overwhelmed by all the sensations of adjusting to Earth for the first time, right? Superman's like, yeah, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? Pow, pow, and it's great. And in this movie, we never see Michael Shannon's amazingly expressive face except for through that fucking CGI lens, and it drives me crazy. We also never really get that moment or like the first flight moment of Cavill with Kara. She just has a moment where is it always this loud or whatever? And then like 5 seconds later it goes away. And
maybe Kal-El was like a moron.
Just knows how to use all her powers immediately.
Kal-El's like an idiot, and that was the story of an idiot finding himself.
But she sees what he's doing.
Respond to what I just said.
And is like, fuck this. No, it didn't deserve one. I'm moving on.
I refuse.
I'm moving on. I will say anything about Henry. He sort of acts like when a girl tries to do a low voice when he acts mad. Mm-hmm. Like, you're lucky that's all that I did, Luther. Like, okay, you don't sound pissed. But, you got everything else. I'll give you a pass. But no, he's not a dummy. He's actually a good journalist in BVS. I just watched it. But yeah, she sees what Zod's doing. I was like, fuck, I don't know about that, right? And then we cut back to the cave. And this is where Barry Prime
This is where we get that sick-ass mechanic's outfit.
Yeah.
Is he still wearing the scarf also?
I think so, yeah. And Barry Prime is like written out all these chemical formulas of like the shit that was on the shelf, and drawn this little illustration of a guy in a chair, No, maybe this is the heart-to-heart about the parents thing. He's showing it to Bruce, and he's like, so your plan is to douse yourself in these chemicals and
electrocute yourself.
Yeah, get struck by lightning. Yeah, pretty much. And that's when we get the line from the trailer. It's like, you want some help? Which is funny because in the way that it was presented before was like deadly serious, but in this context, it was actually a funny joke.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so you want to commit suicide, huh? Can I help? And then
that's been pretty dull lately, so I'm up for excitement.
They're setting all this up, and he's talking about his parents and all this shit. We see young Barry is like actually eating a bunch of shit at a distance and like hears them talking like, oh my God, like my mom died and this other shit. Like, I see why he's doing this now, And I think that's the moment we sort of like, okay, now he's less of a fucking complete asshole the rest of the movie because
he's on board
what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so they do this experiment and young Barry is like, I don't know, man.
It was a cool scene.
Barry Prime is like, come on, we got Bruce here. Like, what could go wrong? And I get Keaton yelling from across the cave, yo, just for the record, I think this is a terrible idea. Yeah. And then he flips the lever there, and I don't know why he's showing his teeth when he does it, but then we see this electric pulse go up a rope, and there's like the
bat kite.
Yeah, the bat kite thing. Do their little Benjamin Franklin moment. The lightning comes down, and it zaps
Why is there a
Barry
bat
Prime.
kite over Wayne Manor? That's strange.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I thought that too. It was like the big lights in the beginning of Returns, Is he just a fan? They shock the shit out of Barry, and he looks like half dead, and he's all bloody, and
Great
it
effect.
doesn't work.
Just a great scene of that the things exploding and all that. I like that.
It looks great, and in the moment, I'm going, oh, interesting. Like, they're going to kill off the one guy who knows what he's doing, and this other guy who was just thrown into it yesterday is going to have to figure this out. Like, I thought that's what they were going to do.
That's neat. That's too much for this movie.
Well, I just thought because there's so many characters, I was like, oh, damn, they're going to kill him off. Like, we're going to have the fucking dingus to save the day. That'll be interesting. And then we see Kara. She's back in the cave. She picks him up. We have a callback as they float away into the sky. She says, I've got you, just like he said to her. Then off screen, he gets shocked again, apparently.
Don't we get a big flash of white light, or no?
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe like a fade to white. And then back in the chair in the cave.
On the ground.
He's... Oh, okay.
She
but
lays him.
He's all fucking just mangled and disgusting and bloody. And young Barry like holds his hand and there's a spark and then he starts to heal. So
the theme from Jurassic Park kicks in. I cried. And then they say, "It's clobbering time," and
sick of it all plays.
Yeah. I don't know. Soon as the nuts, where Michael Keaton looks into the camera, straight face, and goes, "Fuck those nuts." Or, I love nuts. There's some famous line.
Yeah. I'm mixing it up now because there's a few cave moments like this before they go out.
The nuts is before the final confrontation, I believe.
Because I thought it was in the Justice League conversation where they're like, Oh yeah. Maybe this is the Justice League conversation because now Kara's there in full suit and she's on board, right? So this is the moment where he's like, I mean, I guess we're the kind of the Justice League. We got a Kryptonian, and we could use a Batman.
The strategist of our
and that's when he says,
"Hello, I'm nuts."
To me, it could work. You're still going to get a little bit of an eye roll from me. It could work, because even in the trailer, I was like, fuck this. Because like, oh my God, oh, that's dumb. That's sort of how it went with me the first time. I was like, oh, wow, that's stupid. If they did less, like it's obvious enough without him going, you want to get nuts? Dramatic pause and zoom. Come on.
Let's get nuts. Maybe that's what I was talking about, where there was like the sound of bats flying and it sounded like applause.
Yeah, that could be. Because I think if he said, and we need a Batman. Like, what do you think? And it just cuts to him. And in the same nonchalant way that he delivered pass and walked away, if he shrugged it off more like, let's get nuts and whatever, I could maybe do with that. If you had to have it there, cut the setup and make it not such a fucking serious stare into the camera moment.
I want to go one further. I want him to kind of...
You want him to scream it like the original.
No, I wanted to go one step closer to what you want, where I want it to be like, he kind of looks to the side and goes like, sure, let's get nut, and then it just cuts to the next scene before he even finishes the line.
Much better. That would fix it.
Yeah, let's get nut.
It's also weird. I mean, if you want to say how much do you weigh, sure. But the two main iconic lines that he repeats from 89.
Let me show you something.
Were his improv lines.
He improv those?
Yeah, both of them.
Oh.
Because he was supposed to say, like, I am the knight, or whatever. Like, it was more like what Conroy ended up saying in the first one, but he said, I'm Batman. Yeah, the same thing with the Let's Get Nuts. Like, you can tell because he does the Beetlejuice, come on! Like, like that's just a Keaton thing. So it was weird that they did that. I don't like how it was done. But then we cut to them. We're flying in to the desert with Zod.
And yeah, can't stand it. You know.
We see a really cool use of the Batwing, and this cracks me up too because he's got the two seats behind him, and he's at the controls. And then when people start shooting at them, he uses this like kind of like the Christian Bale Bat Pod, where the front wheel rolls.
There's like a gyro that keeps him in place.
He stays in place, and the whole thing spins.
Including the Flash.
Including the fucking other seats. I was like, that is a total Batman dick move. Like, he could have designed that to keep everyone stationary, but no. He wanted to fuck with them. And so, yeah, it's like, well, they don't know we're on their side yet, right? And Supergirl's flying alongside the jet there. And then this is like a real critical moment of the movie, and not just the big CGI showdown, but the big CGI showdown and the various outcomes and how they affect everything, basically.
This is where I was like, I really don't care now. And then I was like, okay, you've won me back a little bit.
Well, and I'm glad that they did it here, because like I said, we've already seen the Metropolis battle a bunch of times. And so this being a different world, a different way that things played out, we're not at the world engine above Metropolis. We're out in the desert where they were supposed to make the exchange. So this is happening prematurely. So I actually really like that. Normally I'd be like, why are they just doing a big fucking vacant lot CGI fest, you know? But for here I was like, okay, good. Don't show me the city this time, please. And it gives Flashes a lot of room to run around together, you know? Yeah. Now that they're both powered. Oh, the Batsuit gag. I forgot. Because right before they leave, we see young Barry spray painting
the suit,
Batman Returns suit. Yeah, because originally he shows when they're going to try the experiment to give Barry Prime his powers again. He's like, here, this will absorb some of the energy. He's like, no, I need to get hit with it, remember? He's like, fucking suit yourself. But, yeah, young Barry takes it and adjusts it to himself so he can give back the ring and the proper Flash suit, which is nice. But, yeah, he spray paints. He cuts the shoulder joints for mobility. He cuts all these things out of it. And it's amusing because, you know, the bat suit is very, like, fucking tough and bulletproof, but we've also seen, like, Keaton in Returns just rip his cowl off.
Like it's just rubber.
So there's a scene at one point where he just rips the neck out of it, because like, God damn it, I can't.
He has like a pocket knife and he's sawing off the ears.
But that's the funny thing is there's a music montage while he's spray painting the suit, and we see the boots with the lightning on it, and we see all the things, and now it's red, and then the music cuts out to him just sawing with a razor blade on the ears to cut it off, and then leaves it, just a terrible job, and wears this goofy thing, and when they're first descending into battle, it's from the perspective of Barry Prime, all in the nice Flash suit. Fucking young Barry tries to turn his head in that fucking suit and it pulls on his face like this. I laugh so hard at that. Then they're in the action. They're fighting the Kryptonians. Batman's taking everybody from air. He's got his artillery from the Batwing.
And at this point, I'm like, man, I don't care about any of this. It's neat to see. Michael Shannon's awesome. It's a fun fight scene. I like seeing the Supergirl in action. But I'm like, man, I'm not invested in this story. I don't care. And the movie tried.
Because you haven't seen Man of Steel. This is really cool what's happening right now.
No, that's not why.
It's really weird to watch those in reverse order.
No, it's not because of that. It's because, and like the movie tried to get around this before with Michael Keaton going like, well, why do you care about this place? You can go anywhere. And he's like, well, this is the universe where my mom lives.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, well, there's infinite universes. You could go find some other one where she lived and it's not all fucked up like this. So I don't, and this is the problem with multiverse movies. I don't care. There's too much. The crux of a multiverse movie can't be what is happening here in this one place. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is starting to feel like at this point. Like, we got to beat Zod and do this. And then when they throw the pop song over the top of the conflict too, I'm like, man, now I really don't care. Because I know nothing serious is going to happen in this moment when you're playing rock music.
Oh, boy.
It's not going to do it. But once it becomes what it does, which is like
sure.
The movie also going, yes, this doesn't matter because
yeah,
it's not important. This is not the point of it. I'm like, okay, you're agreeing with me. and now I'm
they're
more,
giving you what
invested.
you expect to see, but then they're doing a twist on it. But as we get into this scene, we talked earlier about when Keaton was fighting hand to hand and how it was very on brand. He's minimalist, he's effective, he's clever. He's being tailed by these two Kryptonian ships, these smaller ones, and he shoots out some kind of grapnel rope to both of them, goes up while they go around a fucking mountain and crash into each other. And it's a cartoonish moment, but it's also a very, like, what would he do if he can't outgun these aliens? He would just do something clever like that with his gadgets.
Somewhat of an aside, but I also just don't understand the rules here too, because all these Kryptonians, shouldn't they be really strong?
They are.
Why?
Because he's like, they're fast, but they're not as fast as us,
But blowing up wouldn't do anything to them. I don't understand how a Flash can punch them or do anything to them. I just don't understand.
Well, the other thing is
the rules.
Because they're in their atmospheric suits, they're not getting the full
is that a thing in Man of Steel where like once Zod gets the suit off, then he's really strong?
Yeah, because then he's like on the fly having to figure out how to hone his powers, and then they can go head to head.
But did he not have his powers in the suit?
I think they do have some extent. Like there's previous fight scenes.
How is
suits,
Zod able to beat Supergirl, but all these other Kryptonians are getting their asses kicked by Batman and two Flashes?
Well, I mean, we see plenty of parts where their attacks are not effective. He has to phase and reach into that guy's heart to even stop him. Or we see the great little Keaton bombing thing that, like, isn't working,
Just more stuff to say, like, why I don't care at this point.
Sure.
I'm not saying, like, this is stupid, but I'm
messy.
just like, okay, I'm not worried. I have no feelings.
It's messy.
That's a cool Supergirl suit. Wow, it's cool watching them fight.
One thing I like about
Michael Shannon versus her, this is neat. Okay.
Her entrance to this scene. Zod is on the ship. We get the dramatic reveal from behind, of the door coming up. We see his tattered cape and his silhouette, and she flies up, knocks out his gunships. That great shot of her screaming, like, "What have you done?" Talking about, like, we intercepted his pod. The infant did not survive.
That scene was effective. I felt that.
This is Star-Lord in Guardians 2. Because when Ego revealed that he killed his mom, there's not a beat of hesitation. There's not a cool line. Star-Lord just starts shooting him in the face with both guns.
It's the same as the...
instantly.
Done again by them with the Thanos and Gamora thing. Where's Gamora? And it's like, oh, I had to let her go, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, she stabs him in the chin or whatever. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I love that the moment she realizes that he killed her baby cousin that it just immediately blasts him with the fucking heat vision,
That was cool.
and they start going at it. I love that scene.
It's awesome, but at the same time, as this movie shows us, it doesn't matter.
She has some great.
That should be in a
Logan,
cool Supergirl movie or something.
The X-24 kid in Logan or whatever her name is,
Laura Kinney.
Laura
Kinney.
Her screaming in that movie, fantastic. Kara screaming in this scene is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Some people just don't have the voice for it, but oh my god, she ripped it up. Like, and when I first saw it, I was like, she's pretty cool. They don't give her a lot to do. And then on repeat viewings, I was like, with what little they give her, she fucking nails it. Because those fight scenes are intense. When she first comes to and she's all fucking like agitated and like doesn't trust anybody. Like, she plays it all very well. But yeah, in this scene, when they revisited it a couple times too, I've seen her just like, fucking full on beast mode on Zod. I
It
love
was really cool. And Michael Shannon being a villain, just gives me flashbacks to like Boardwalk Empire of him like, the infant did not survive. Like, that's a pretty weird way to say you killed a baby. Wow.
He's a top 5 actor for me. Like, one of my very favorites. I'll watch anything he's in. And
did you watch Take Shelter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'll also watch anything that Jessica Chastain is in. And so that was like, oh my God. Holy shit. I just watched him do one of those career retrospective YouTube videos for like Vanity Fair or something. He's like, people always talk about the luncheon scene, where he flips the table and goes crazy in front of everybody. But the scene where she's telling him he has to leave the bunker, and it like shows it for a second, and then it cuts back to him, and he is like breaking down thinking about it. I'm like, oh my God, this is why I love this guy, because he is so invested. And his Zod in Man of Steel is the best villain in the whole DCEU. Like, his intensity, even in the beginning, the part that you did see, we're going to banish you to the Phantom Zone or whatever, and talking about his son, like, I will find him, and like his whole fucking skeleton is vibrating. Like, he is so intense in that fucking movie. And when I saw Take Shelter and he has that meltdown, I was like, oh my God, he went full Zod. That's amazing. And it is crime that he's not the point of this movie, because we just glimpses of it, I guess. Like you said, the way he delivered that line, like, the infant did not survive. It's deadly serious, but like the face-off scene when him and Superman are going at it and...
Fucking.
Yes, when they're pounding off. Where do you get these terms? No, when Always Sunny, sorry. They're having a face-off. It's this pivotal moment where, like, he's basically been defeated. The world engine's been destroyed. Zod is like, my entire purpose was to protect my people. And now I have no people. And it is like the fucking, it's just bone chilling, man. I fucking love his delivery in this. And there's actually a great line where Supergirl has witnessed what he did to the general and the invasion here. And when she's back at the cave, she said something about like, these are not my people. And I was like, I even have a line in a rap that says, one more time for my people, like I'm General Zod. Like, he says it a lot of times.
One more time for my people, like I'm General Zod. And unbeliever on the steeple, yeah, you better resort.
Anyway, I love his performance. We didn't get nearly enough of it. But at this point, we see both Barrys doing awesome shit together at full strength powers, running around.
Learning how to shoot lightning bolts out of their hands.
And he's like, careful, you're getting too charged up. And he's like, what if I just Emperor this guy? And then they learn there's like a whatever. You
that's pretty good, but you got to make your hand shape more like this.
Yeah, you got to ground it in some way. But that shit was awesome, dude. Like, he starts blasting the big guy. Fucking Barry Prime's like, oh, God damn it. And then he races around, does a lap real quick. So he's charged up. And then they're both blasting this guy at the same time. So fucking good. But very abruptly, Keaton goes, I'm going to take out the big ship. Like, I'm going for the big guy. And he shoots it with everything he's got. Force field comes up, and then they have a retaliatory strike and take him down, and it damages his ejector, and he can't get out. At the exact same time, we cut to Kara was pounding the shit out of Zod's face, and he's like now melded into the side of their crashed
She has like some
ship,
a big pipe, and she keeps hitting him
she's
in
like
the head.
beating the fuck out of him, and he's just sinking farther into this fucking big hunk of metal. And he gets one hand free, and that fucking Wolverine spike comes out and runs right through her. And at the same time, Bruce is like, I'm going down, but I'm not going alone. And he fucking kamikazes into one of their ships. And they both die instantaneously. And I just went, what? There was like no setup for it. And she just slumps over after one thing, like one stab, and he breaks free. And Feoric brings over the fucking thing to get the codex out, and they shove it through her chest, Young Barry sees it, runs back like, she's dead. And fucking Barry Prime is like, they both are.
This is the moment where I was like, okay, now I'm on board. And I'm going to make the joke you would make. You'd be like, yeah, because I'm an asshole who just wants to see them get murdered.
Over and over again.
No, that's where I'm okay, because I'm like, okay, now the point I understand is not about winning this battle, because I already know what's going to happen. He's going to go back in time, and they can't do this again, because it's already been done in their movie and other movies. They can't go back and win, because we've already done that. So it's just going to be him going back and failing multiple times. And I'm like, that's neat. That's an interesting, like, there are infinite universes in multiple dimensions take where, again, it doesn't make sense if you have infinite universes, because you should be able to just go to the one where your mom lived and Zod died and Superman, like that should exist. But putting that aside, that's the neat story to tell, where like, for whatever reason, it's futile, and you trying to fix this just keeps making it worse and worse and worse. And like,
exactly. Because if you just jump to the other universe, then it's like, oh, it's over. Cool, that was 20 minutes.
But that undermines the whole movie. And so that's kind of, in my mind, a strike against the movie. But set that aside.
If you watch I love watching honest trailers. I've talked about this before. If you watch the one for Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, there's a joke. They're like, get ready to explore the multiverse. And it shows, no, not that movie. No, not that one. No, not that one. No, not that one. No, get ready to explore the multiverse. And it shows like all the crazy shit that him and America Chavez are falling through, all these crazy things. And then when it ends the montage, he goes, for one scene. Because the rest of the movie takes place in that one world that they've landed in, which is basically your complaint here.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon, because there are a lot of like time travel movies that do that.
And kind of what we talked about in Fury of the Gods with Shazam was like, you went through all the doors for a second and then you just stayed in one. Like, we got all the possibilities of the magic lands,
Yeah, and it's lazy, and you can do it a more
sexy way.
Well, yeah, and a more interesting version of that same thing, and I can't remember it. Oh, I guess it would be like Endgame. You're saying these separate universes don't matter, but we've come up with a neat way for it to play into our universe that we have to save, but then a villain from one of those universes comes over.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time it's been done, because they do that in other, like, the one that comes to mind immediately is ridiculous, but it's The Last Action Hero, where the villain comes out of the movie into the world. But I mean, that's a common thing. We're like, oh, we brought someone back and we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And now that threatens the main universe that you care about, because that's your universe. And this doesn't quite have that. This is just like, we're arbitrarily in this universe because we've picked it, I guess.
Well, because we've found the one where, oh shit, they actually survived. There's this happy family, and then it's like, all right, well, how do I? Honestly, the dumb thing, I immediately thought of this on my third viewing. The monster dumps him out of the Chrono Bowl, and he winds up in front of his house. It's the 18-year-old Barry's house. I immediately thought of that other YouTube series, How It Should Have Ended. And I guarantee 100% that when that video comes out for this movie, he's going to get dumped out of the Chrono Bowl in front of his house. He's just going to run fast and go back in.
It's back to the Chrono Bowl.
Yeah, because there's no reason to stay. Until he lost his powers, like everything up to that point was a mistake. He knew he shouldn't have interacted with his parents. He knew he shouldn't have interacted with his younger self. He shouldn't have done any of that. He should have, oh my God, there's another me. And then he should have run away and gone back to the Chrono Bowl.
Each one of those things he didn't have to keep doing more things past that. Like, oh, you wanted to see your mom. Okay, there's me. Okay, now leave.
Yeah.
Don't go assault yourself or like.
Yeah. Don't go hide you from your parents. Just go back to where you came from, because you're the one who got there. Just because the guy threw you out doesn't mean you can't go back there.
And it's funny because I say the thing that I want is just like a movie that's more The Flash and Michael Keaton. That's what I want more of.
Yeah.
But you only get that.
But you're like, none of this is necessary.
But you have to have
best stuff.
You have to have some stupid multiverse stuff to get there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would never get any of this stuff in a movie at all.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get the cool Supergirl and Michael Keaton and Zod or any of that.
Yeah.
But it's also not important.
So to cut back to this moment in the film, they're both dead, and young Barry, who's new at the superhero shit, has not had to face any loss in his life, freaks out. He gets really emotional, races off.
He's like, you're not fast enough yet. You can't get to the
Barry
chrono
Prime's
bubble.
like, oh my God, you can't do this. You're not going to be able to pull this off, right? And so he catches him, and then they're both in the chrono bowl, and they're seeing the time travel shit together in this weird Coliseum layout. They're both like, okay, do you know what you're going to do different? I know what I'm going to do. All right, cool. And then they both go off. Bruce goes, I'm going to take out the big guy. And he goes, he's got fucking shields up. Don't do it. And he's like, roger that. And he flies above him, does a high pass. And then he's like, all right, well, I'm going to take out this fucker on the ground. He's like, yes, please. Big space alien guy. Take him out, right? And conversely, Kara is stepping to Zod. And instead of letting her just beat the shit out of him into this object, young Barry does the little cyclone trick that we saw earlier. He's just running circles around Zod. And Kara sees this and is like, oh, cool, like a diversion. So she flies in and punches him and flies in, punches him, and does this thing until he just sort of like...
That's a sweet, like, meditation
Zen moment of
like,
relax, focus your senses, and
Strike.
see her coming from there. Yeah. Which is great because Zod is their military leader on Krypton. So, like, he's the guy who's going to know how to fight, not just have the powers, you know? And he catches her anyway, in a great way too, because like when she flies through, he steps back, he takes his arm and like slams her downward, so uses her own momentum against her in a very actually Batman kind of way, like when he's fighting a Bane or a Killer Croc or something, really cool move. And so he knocks her down again. Cut back to Keaton, and he's blowing up the big guy on foot. We see this awesome eject from the plane, right? He comes down, and he puts a little timer bomb on the back of this guy, kind of reminiscent when he blew up that clown in Returns. But he puts a little timer bomb on the guy's chest, and then he flips to his backside, and it blows up.
Kind of getting the shit kicked out of him at the same time.
Yeah. And then he puts the timer bomb on the guy's back, and he flips to his front, and it blows up again, and it's doing this just fucking awesome Batman shit. I fucking love it. It's so good to see this version of Batman do this awesome shit. Yeah. I mean, it's some of the coolest Batman shit we've seen regardless.
Yes.
From anyone. Fucking Arkham shit, It's just
that's exactly what I thought that in the first fight scene under in the silo. I was like, this is like Arkham. Because he's like using the grapple to pull a guy close and clotheslining him and then jumping over and like,
dude.
Oh, I got to pick my gadget for this move. And
like, this is real Batman.
So then in this scene, you get because I had the same thought you did. Like, wow, they killed those two characters with no fanfare or anything. And then they do it again, and this time they get like the dramatic death of like, it's okay, Barry, I got you.
Well, yeah, he takes down the big fucker, and then he's standing there, and as the camera moves closer to Batman, he's kind of got that proud moment, like fuck yeah, and then he sort of like drops to his knees, as he lays on his back. Barry Prime runs up to him. He's like, no, I can bring you back. Batman goes, you already did, kid, or something like that. It's like, oh, that's fucking great. And this is when I mentioned earlier, there's a callback. He uses the exact same words that were Affleck's last words on screen when he asked, you want to get a bite, And I was like, why did he say it that way? That's weird. And so in this moment, he's all bloodied up and is dying, and he says, not this time, kid. Maybe some other time. And in this context, he's talking about the time travel and the multiverse and all that shit. So it was perfect for him to say that. And they were talking about those weird intersections where some things just will be the same. And so I really liked that.
I did, and because of that moment where he realizes that this is going to keep happening and there's nothing he can do and the young Barry won't accept it. That is a neat moment. Again, it's undermined by the movie arbitrarily picking what things have to keep happening and what things don't have to keep happening.
Well, I mentioned at this moment, they cut back and Kara does die, and hers is very unceremonious too. In this, like we kind of see from a distance, she gets shanked again, and they immediately stick that other thing on her.
This reminds me of something else where there's a movie like that where somebody time travels and keeps seeing the death or something like that, but you see it from different angles. I can't remember what it is though.
But yeah, so they both die a second time. I would say hers was maybe more significant the first time. His was more significant the second time. But I'm a big crier in movies.
And just in general. I've walked in on you a few times. I didn't want to say
weeping.
anything, but yeah.
And like, are you ready for practice? Yeah,
I'm good.
But they...
Pet food commercial. Why are you crying?
Yes, exactly. So that's Sarah McLachlan's song. But they killed my childhood hero in front of my eyes.
That made me happy knowing that you were going through that.
That never happened in the other movies, right? And they're doing it. And I've talked about in other movies before, like, if they just had the balls to commit to, right? And in this one, they did it in such a way where it almost felt like they cut some shit out or something, where I was like, wait, you just fucking killed, what? Because it just happened, like another thing that happened. I'm like, what, huh? And then even when he had his fucking, like, his dying words, and in that moment, props to Keaton on an believable death scene, like, well acted, but, like, I just...
you want to get nuts? Let's get...
Yeah. No, I just didn't feel anything.
Because you've also now in that moment realized that none of this matters.
Yeah,
Your
by
brain
that point,
has realized that.
Yeah, because the first time is he dies off screen, you know.
It's a little...
He blows up.
It's a little, like, shocking.
And you're like, did they, really? You know? But that was all. It was like, really? And not like, oh my God. And if anyone was going to have that reaction, it'd be me. And I'm like, man, if you're not selling this to me, geez, you know. And so that happened, and then they go back, and they're in the Chrono Bowl again, and Barry Prime is like, fuck, dude, we can't fix it. We can't keep, this is one of those, this is the spaghetti, you know? Like, we can't undo it. And young Barry's like, fuck this, I have to do it.
And
you
at
know?
this point, he's also got the first, like, Kryptonian shrapnel on his arm, and now he's using it as a weapon.
Yeah, because they...
the big Russian guy from Superman 2, the version of him in this movie, gets him with the blade.
Right. I think it's when Keaton dies. Then it's both Flashes. Like, oh my God, they're both dead again.
Because that guy gets up, because bombs aren't going to actually kill that guy.
And then the guy gets up after Batman blew up his head, but it didn't actually do it. It just knocked him out. So he gets up. Oh, this is when they do the double Emperor and blast the fool. Because he's like, why are you doing this? It doesn't matter. We can just go back. He's like, fuck you. You know? And so he's like, fine, I'll race around, I'll charge up. And both blast him, and then he explodes. And as his armor and body parts, shrapnel going everywhere, Prime yells, phase! And we watch all the shrapnel go through him. And then it cuts to young Barry, who's kind of doing it, but he gets hit with this big fucking thing in his arm. And then when Feora comes over and starts trying to kill him, he's like swinging defensively and accidentally shanks her with it. And I'm like, oh, I've got a fucking... Which, by the way, how bad would that hurt? Oh, my God. Yeah. To stab someone with something that was stabbed into you?
Yeah, it would be like a mutual thing.
But yeah, he does it. And then in the Chrono Bowl, young Barry keeps going out. And Prime stays. He's like, I'm not doing this shit. He keeps coming back with more shit sticking out of him.
He's like, this world is doomed. We can't do anything for it.
Exactly. And at this point, we start to see...
What do you mean this world? You just created two worlds right now. Yeah. It's not this world. Does that mean every time you do this, it's a different world? So why do these rules don't make sense? But in this moment, I was like, okay, I like this.
And then we see these other Chrono Bowl intersections happening. And... it's like blown a hole out the side of theirs, and they could see these other ones that are starting to collide. And we see the original George Reeves Superman in black and white, and then it cuts down
to
his
Flash.
Yeah, which I don't watch The Flash, but from what I understand, he's like he's the old-fashioned Barry Allen from the Flash TV show.
But the original, but that guy is a different guy altogether. That Flash, the Flash with the lightning bolt helmet.
Oh, he is.
It's just a different guy.
But
it's that actor from the show.
Got it. I think the next one was
Christopher Reeve Superman.
Yeah. We see the silhouette, and I think it's Cavill. And when the light comes onto his face, it's Chris Reeve, and I instantly started weeping the first time I saw it. I was like, oh my God, because like.
That was neat. I liked it.
I've never seen, and
then you see his Supergirl too, and it was like...
Yeah, which I honestly never saw that movie, but...
I saw it as a kid, so like I have the context for it. You know, like, oh, okay, Supergirl here, Supergirl there.
Yeah, I recognized her. I thought that was very nice, but like, I grew up on the first two Superman movies, and that was incredible. That was a spoiler alert for Star Wars fans if you're way behind, but that was a Rogue One Leia moment for me of like, oh my God, holy shit, they brought her back. Like,
and that part of me was like, oh my God, they brought him back. That's creepy.
See that?
A little part of me.
That hit me way more than Michael Keaton dying on screen, his real performance, which is a good performance, was just the way they contextualized it, didn't sell it. And then they showed him. I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Because you think it's going to be Cavill, which you goddamn fucking pricks are just...
We did see him earlier.
It's like a personal thing to him.
In the Chrono Bowl, we saw him with his shirtless punching when they bring him back to life.
Yeah, you see his horrible fucking CGI rendered mustacheless face, and then earlier you see him flying around from a distance from behind on the news. You know, and when Alfred's like, "Yeah, Superman's otherwise occupied," but like, how dare you fucking keep using his goddamn likeness? And like, you learn nothing after Shazam. You learn nothing after Shazam. What the fuck, man? Like, it's so upsetting. So we see all these different versions. We see Adam West. Briefly, it's like a still.
Yeah.
And we hear his voice and Cesar Romero's voice as the Joker. Then it keeps moving and it pans to another world. We see an obscured by the dark Superman. You can't quite tell.
As it gets closer, you see the long hair.
You see the long hair, and then gets blasted by this big spider thing, and you're like, oh my god, are they doing... And sure enough, he blasts his way out, he blows the fucking thing up, and it's Nick Cage. And at the early screening, I'm telling you, the loudest applause I've ever seen for a movie reveal in a theater was for Nick Cage. Not for Michael Keaton, it was for Nick Cage, because that was Tim Burton's movie, written by Kevin Smith, that everyone knows about, but it never got made, and we've seen the test photos or whatever, and that's it. And the fact that they actually made it real is genius.
It was funny. I was laughing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it every time.
It was both very cool.
Yeah.
This whole scene was effective on me because now it's like I don't care about whatever this movie's story is. I'm just, look at these cool things. This is neat.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, you drew my attention away from your movie to maybe think about Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West, no.
Yes.
No, that was supposed to be the actual climax of that movie.
I know, but then it became in Wild Wild West. Like, that's what that producer went on to go do. So that's what, like, you've now made me...
Oh, right.
I'm not thinking
they reused the idea.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of your movie. I'm thinking of Wild Wild West.
That's funny. And was that the last of the cameos? I'm trying to remember now in that...
I think so, because that's when they start smashing together.
Scene. Right, yeah. Then they all start colliding, and we see Superman and Supergirl just like look at each other and watch as it happens, do nothing. But supposedly they actually had archive footage of Reeve that they had used for that. And I was talking to somebody about it, and he's like, then why do they make him look like a CGI jelly monster? And I was like, maybe to look as weird as everything else happening? I don't fucking know.
No, because it's... I was split because
the whole
part
shit
of me
looks weird.
Yeah, I was split because part of me was
weird.
Like, this is really neat. I'm enjoying this, even though this is so strange. But
Cage
I appreciate
looks real.
No, he didn't. He looked fake to me. Every one of these people looked like all the Chrono Bowl people did there, where they all look like Robert Zemeckis CG. And I mean that even like the better version. Like, I've never seen Polar Express, but I've seen parts of it, and I get the whole like it's weird and dead-eyed. Yeah. But like Beowulf was kind of a cool movie, and because the whole movie exists like that, you accept that this is what humans look like in this world. You accept that like everyone looks kind of not quite real, even though it's like Angelina Jolie. She looks like a weird, whatever, octopus monster, jellyfish monster, whatever. But that's what they look like in this too, where I was both taken aback by the emotion of seeing Christopher Reeve.
George Reeves, Christopher Reeve.
Christopher Reeve. I was taken aback by it, but also going like, oh, that's like a weird, uncanny valley recreation of that dead guy.
Yeah. Well, and part of it hit me so hard too because I'm under the assumption that anything I'm seeing right now may very well be improved on the later final version of the movie, right? And so, like, I had 3 different experiences watching this movie. The first one, I was fully bought in. There's a lot of excitement in that room. It was an excellent experience, top to bottom. Second time I saw it was weeks later. Now, painfully aware of the flaws of this movie. Because now I'm seeing it more objectively, right?
The excitement is past.
Yeah, you know what you're in for, and you know where the story's going to take you. And so you're
just waiting for the scenes you like, trying to get through the scenes you don't
boy,
like.
this dialogue isn't great in this part, is it? And like, oh, they didn't fix the effects, and so then I'm starting to get this like tally as I'm going. I'm like, oh, geez, this
that seems like kind of a calculated move though to show it early and say it's not finished, guys. So anything that seems like it might not be good, don't worry about that.
Exactly,
that's on the plate.
Second time,
go tell people how good this is.
Was like, yeah, there's some problems here, and then third time. It was sort of like I went to see Birds of Prey, the premiere, and was like, what the fuck is this bullshit, I had my own ideas of what I thought I was about to see, And then, like, when I saw it again, I'm like, right, Harley is a fucking cartoon. Like, Harley is a ridiculous character, and everything that happens around her is nonsense. And if I can, know now what I'm going into, like, okay, I can accept these things and enjoy this ride for what it is, not what I think it should be. And so the third time I watched it, that's what it was of like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'm down, and I'm in between my initial ratings,
I can appreciate the thought process behind that, but for me, it's like the opposite of that.
Well, because you're not a big fucking autistic rewatch a movie a million times guy like I am,
No.
and so
I watch a movie like twice in 5 years. I'm like, that was too soon.
Yeah.
I love that movie. Why did I watch it again?
Need to wait until I'm another generation older. But I'm definitely a rewatch a movie kind of guy, like a lot of times, and so now I know when I see that movie, I'm just going to feel the same about it as I do at this point. Because there's sort of a hump to me to challenge your initial expectations and whether it lives up to that or whether it does something completely different or...
In my brain, there's always a person who's like, wow, I got to watch a movie.
Sure. And Batman's in it.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Neat. I'm not at work.
I think this show has a good enough track record about being fair and objective and insanely detailed about the things that we talk about that I can say to some extent I am the guy you're talking about. But
wow, look at this thing
but
these
I
people
think about
made.
it a lot more critically than that too.
But I could also be sitting quietly on my couch. I think
with your thoughts? Oh God.
I think I would enjoy that more at this moment.
Oh God, no.
I could be taking a nap.
Okay, no.
I could be eating nachos. I could be doing all these other things.
You could be eating nachos and watching the film. I mean, that sounds like a great time.
You have to pick a lane. You're not living your life if you're like torn between these different things you're doing. Now I understand you better. I get your problems. You can't.
Right. Yeah. I was on my phone the whole time in the theater. Yeah. Where are we at this point? The worlds collide, and
this is what it's like. What? You ready? When that song came on, I was like, okay, you've won me back, pop songs. I love this use of music.
So there are little nods in this film, like the yellow headphones that are reverse flash motifs that young Barry wears. In this moment, we get the reveal of like young Barry runs off to try to change it again, and that big fucking monster comes through, somehow with his powers of electricity, suspends Flash in the air like he's bound. he's bound and chained by the electricity.
He's old at this point, so he's been doing this a very long time.
Yeah, he's very skilled, and he's leveled up a lot of times. He's about to kill him, and this is when young Flash returns. He sees what's going on. This moment, I guess, when it was just the two of them, it's like, who are you? And it's like, I've lived so many lives. And it's like, that's not an answer. What the fuck? Right? And then young Flash sees that the guy's about to run him through while he's bound. And so he human shields himself.
But they do have a whole dialogue about
they have a whole thing of like, but no, I still can. I can almost do it, right?
Isn't it crazy how I started this whole thing? I brought you here
out,
to start this, and you're the one thing in my way.
Yeah. And so he has this whole thing where you're like, okay, this is actually mirroring the obsession that we saw in Young Flash, and maybe that's...
I'm a real smart guy, so I knew it right away.
I don't really know anything about the Flash besides these
I don't know
movies.
that. I just can I can like pick up on cues.
So you saw that monster thing earlier, and you're like, oh, that's the Flash.
In the future.
The first time they showed him, you just knew that that's what it was.
Because it's a time travel movie.
Got it.
I've seen enough. I've read enough stories about time travel. I wasn't like, I'm certain of it, but I'm pretty sure. And then as soon as...
I think they did a good job of, even when his shit started falling off his face, you can't recognize his face. You only recognize the scar.
As soon as young Barry got the spike in his arm, I was like, okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, he's just going to keep... That's okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is a scene where I was appreciating. I love Ezra Miller's emotional performances as Barry Prime. I love Ezra Miller's performances as the funny young dumbass. And now he's playing 3 fucking characters in the same scene.
Ezra Miller is a good actor.
This is rad. And
very good actor.
young Flash runs between them, human shields himself, gets stabbed by this reverse Flash monster thing.
Like Evil Flash is what we'll call him.
Okay. Then he starts to fucking disintegrate because he just killed his younger self. Barry Prime is like, I could save him. Like, well, no, I can't. I can't fix this because this is the only way to out. How do we get back to reality at this point?
He goes, oh, I have to kill my mom, basically. He comes to that realization. I have to go undo what I just did.
Oh, right.
To start the movie.
That's why young Flash kept going back and back. He's like, no, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go back and kill mom, you know? And he's like, look, you have to take comfort in knowing that she is out there alive in some universe, just not for us. Like, your universe is dying today.
There's also 1,000 universes where she's being tortured.
Sure.
So take comfort in the multiverse.
Yeah. Take comfort in all the possibilities. Everything you could imagine.
Good and bad.
She winds up with Nick Cage as Superman in one of these.
She is Superman.
Yeah,
there's
there
at
you
least a million infinite universes where she's Superman.
So,
maybe it's Back to the Future that I'm thinking of, where he witnesses him get shot, but then he comes back and then like.
Was that the third one?
He warned Doc Brown, so he had a little shield on to protect himself from getting killed.
The Old West one?
It's the first one. Because he tells him the Libyans are going to kill him. He's like, I don't want to know anything about it. That's from Back to the Future 1.
Right.
Yeah, he sees him get shot from a distance. No!
So here, the other Barrys are gone. I can just say Barry. So here, Barry decides he has to go back and undo what he's done. And so he goes back to that store. He dresses in some off-the-rack clothes to disguise himself. Peeking around the corner, he actually sees his Flash self reach through the nothing, like the BVS. Lois is the key, like he pops through. Which, by the way, I still, after all of these movies, do not recognize, besides his voice, Ezra Miller in that BVS scene for a moment. He looks like Michael Pena or something. Like he looks like
some random
in
person.
This movie with the Mexican mom. He does not look Mexican. In that scene, for whatever reason, he does. He's like. His facial hair was different. His whole face is covered. And I'm like, who is that guy? It's so weird. Even in the Suicide Squad cameo.
Booster Gold.
After that, he looks
Flash.
like himself. But yeah, that one, it never looked right. And so we see him come through and put the soup can in there. And we hear him repeat the words, see you soon. Don't forget the sauce, mom, whatever. And then Barry's got to walk around and take that out of the cart. And so he sees her grab the cereal, strikes up some conversation, oh, I used to love that when I was a kid, And then she could see he's visibly upset behind his stolen sunglasses with the tags on. I guarantee Honest Trailers is going to be like, we finally see a Flash movie where we get to see all his superhero crying. Because he cries a lot of times in this movie. But
this scene was ruined for me.
Really?
Yeah, because so going into this movie, I knew all this stuff about Ezra Miller. We'll say allegations, but it seems like they are.
I think some of it's on video.
Yeah, strong allegations.
Honestly, I don't even remember the details because it happened a year or two ago.
The allegations are like grooming a 12-year-old, starting a cult, assaulting multiple people in different scenarios, breaking into their homes and threatening them.
Yeah.
Just like, and I mean, you could say like, oh, maybe if you were an actor.
Starting a cult, I think.
Yeah, starting a cult where like babies were chewing on bullets or something. These are all the alleged things. And
right. There was living in such squalor that they found a baby playing with a fucking
so
live round.
And I could even, if I'm going to be like an empathetic, thoughtful human, like, oh, I could see like you're an actor.
If you're gonna cosplay this role,
no, you're an actor, so you're like sort of probably like a self-important, self-absorbed person. You think you're special, and now you're going to be a big superhero in one of the biggest movies of all time, and it's just one clusterfuck after another. And now here's your big chance to be a big superstar, and it's just nothing is working. So now you're off the rails and you're whatever. I could see how a person becomes messed up, I guess is what I mean to say.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if the point is Hollywood chews up people and makes them crazy, then sure, yeah.
Yeah. But so going into this, I knew that, and I was like, I guess I'm supporting this person. But
I mean, you drink one baby's blood, and you gotta have another.
I just watched Endgame. I don't judge people by their worst mistakes.
Oh.
Which is not a good line, because sometimes that is how we judge people rightly.
Yeah, by a jury of their peers.
Yeah. But so going into this, I was like, okay, except that movies are made by a bunch of people. You can watch it. It's not just supporting them. You're supporting, but whatever. But in this scene where I was like, wow, this is like some good emotional stuff and connecting with the mother, that's good. And then I was like, wow, this person probably is like, yeah, I'm such a fucking awesome person that I can like make people feel something connecting in this scene. And then I'm just thinking like, what a fucking asshole. What a fucking asshole that person is. Like,
You have a strange mindset in watching movies, man.
I was just like, I'm no longer in this scene feeling the emotion. I'm just like this egotist.
You're like, this fucking guy.
This egotist is like,
Does it have to be you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I didn't feel anything. I imagine them going, cut, like, she was not on her mark. Can we do this again? I was really in the moment and she was ruining it. Guys, this is my moment to shine. Okay, can we get our heads in the game, please? Mom, I'll always love you.
I saw a post the other day. Somebody said, I've seen more backlash for Halle, whoever, simply being black in The Little Mermaid than I have for Ezra Miller's actual crimes in playing the Flash. And I was like, okay, well, may I direct you to the social media page for the Flash? Because if you watch any one of those posts, every single one of them is loaded with comments of like, won't be supporting, fuck this guy, he sucks, what a piece of shit, how is he not canceled, all this stuff. I simultaneously understand that, and also that payment happened a long time ago. You're not giving money to that person. There are hundreds of people who work on a film like this also. I just don't really see, like, separation to a degree is important. Like, I like a Mel Gibson movie. I'm not going to hang out with him. After what he said
about my people?
I'm not going to hang out with him. Yeah.
You're going to reward that kind of behavior and language?
I don't like the guy. I like his characters.
Mel Gibson's great.
Yeah. Like, I just, like, I have a harder time with musicians than I do with actors, particularly like rappers. I don't listen to Nas anymore after I'm sure I've talked about this, but, has this big heartfelt album where he's all vulnerable and open about his divorce and all this shit, right? And then, like, a few years go by, and his ex starts talking about him, like, beating the fuck out of her and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a convenient thing to leave out of your fucking life story that you've been telling us, right? And you're out there portraying yourself, and you're getting us to like yourself for your values. And that I have a hard time with. You're a bad, or like Kanye West, I don't like you. Therefore, if you out there being you is not appealing to me. However, an actor that sucks, pretending he's somebody else, I can like the character.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's easier for me to buy into that.
It's easier to do it, but it's the same thing. It's like you're going like, you're a piece of shit. I know it now. I didn't know it before, and now I don't want to give you money.
Sure, and I get the vote with your dollar thing. I really do. A lot of people had that hang up, and I just didn't. It's just like, this guy sucks. And then the movie starts, and it's like, oh, the character.
Well, yeah, I'm a bad enough person, but I could put that aside for the course of this movie. But in that moment, I was like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
I don't care about this.
To me, that's like maybe the best scene in the movie, honestly.
It could have been.
I'm watching this.
If it was played by a CG Haley Joel Osment, I would have been like, yeah. His
mom's performance is so good in this scene where she's like, I know I'm just a strange lady in the store, but would you like a hug? And like, who is your mom? I wonder if I know her. And he's just like, she is the best, most thoughtful, blah, blah, blah. And she has just this like sweet smile. And it's like, you should tell her that. Moms love to hear that sort of thing. And like, my mom is alive. And I'm like, oh my God.
My mom is not alive. And I was like, this fucking asshole.
But I thought that scene was great. Me. And then as she's comforting him, her hand is on his face. He uses his powers, to dart around, pull the can out. He stuffs it in his side pocket,
I love you. I love you more. I love you first.
And he says all the lines to himself because he can't really say it to her. And it's heartbreaking because there's definitely enough here that you know what he's doing. But I think there could have been just a little bit more even for these emotional scenes where he first goes back and he puts the can in there. Like, he's seeing his mom for the first time alive, like right before his eyes. Like, I think that could have been an emotional beat as well.
Hang on that a little longer.
More than it was.
Shave off the stupid roommates who we never see again.
I mean, I like the burping part, but otherwise, yeah, they can go. What was the tattoo joke?
It was Eric Stoltz from Back to the Future.
Oh, Marty McFly. He's like, that's not my thigh. He's like, is it? And pulls his leg. Yeah. Anyway, those guys can go away. But yeah, I think they could have made that, seeing her for the first time, be really, really special. And I mean, he played it well. But then in this one, because we had the spectacle of the other Flashes dying in the Chrono Bowl and all that, then we cut back to, okay, now we're going back to fix the wrongs that we made, right? But I think it could be underscored here that he's killing her. And his emotional state is very moving to me. Each time I saw it, it fucking hit me, man. It's just really, really powerful.
You're a sucker.
Oh, yeah, man. Once I hit like 30, it's just like, yeah, I will cry at a commercial. You're not even making shit up when you say that.
I will remember you.
And so...
You don't get it. His wife got him that Dodge. It's been in the garage, and the daughter cleaned it up, and they're going to go for a drive.
Dude, honestly, that scene in the middle where the berries are fighting in the Batcave, and he's like, you use monkey as a dartboard. He's like... What, Mom buys us all kinds of monkey shit. What are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, right. Totally different experiences. And like that hit me for a moment because like I have fucking like a super mom. One of the most supportive people you could ever imagine, to the extent that it's like, my mom has given me so many gifts. It would be hard for me to remember, like on my birthday, what did she give me on my last birthday? She's just so over the top with all the supportive, thoughtful things, right? And in that moment...
Why don't you write a song about it?
When he's like, yeah, maybe I have. And he's like, you fucking take everything for granted. You don't even know what you have and all that stuff. And it's like, even as someone who knows that and am like vocally appreciative of all these things, that part still really hit me of like, God, I am this asshole who just like has it really good though, you know, in this particular way. It just really hit me. And then we see him, he says goodbye to her, you know, in real time again. And they both part ways.
He looks at the camera and he goes, speed on.
He walks over to put the can of tomato sauce back on the shelf where it came from because he's a good person. And he puts his own carts away when he's finished shopping, motherfuckers. But he's putting it back on the shelf where it properly goes because he's a good person in this character version. And he looks at the shelf and he looks up at the surveillance video that we had seen in his dad's parole hearing, that his dad's standing there at the shelf, and he pulls the can off the middle shelf and walks away. And because of his hat,
actually, we saw it at home on the Wayne-provided security footage
because of
in
his
preparation of the parole.
Hat, we never saw him in his face. Now, one could say that all the bagged evidence of the fucking exact clothes he was wearing might help. But cut back to his apartment, present day.
The grocery store doesn't have cameras over the registers or at the registers.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you have cameras in the aisle by the tomato sauce.
Yeah, I don't know. But he's back to present day in his regular-ass apartment, and he's like, oh, my God, I'm back. Like, everything looks normal. He sees a note from Iris. Didn't know where you went. Good luck at the hearing. Oh, shit. Races down there. He steals a hot dog from the director's mouth in a cameo like his younger self did in an earlier scene when he first got his powers. Walks into the court late, and we see this thing play out, and we think we know how it's going to go because we never see anything happen when he's in the store. We just see him put the can back, look up at the camera, and then it's like, oh, yeah, we're back to the trial. And you saw this coming because that's just what you do. I didn't.
For a second, I had like a weird, like, and then I was like, listen, that's stupid. That's too weird and dark. I was like, it's going to be him who was on the camera the whole time, and his dad did kill his mom.
Oh, God.
Like, and then a moment later, I was like, you idiot. It makes no sense.
And so they show the video, and we think we know what it's going to see, or what it's going to show, because we've already seen it. His dad's on it, and he never looks up. But in this case, he's looking. It's not there. He looks up, and the sauce is on the top shelf. And his dad is exonerated. This is another moment that they missed. Did they cut it? I don't know. But his dad is finally free. That's the entire point of this movie, is to save his parents. And he couldn't save one. He can save the other. Celebratory moment. Barry walks out alone. His dad is no longer incarcerated. He's inside somewhere, hanging out with his lawyer, getting high fives. And then Barry's just outside, and the press swarms around him. Hey, how do you feel? What happened in there? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, the spaghetti and the blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what the fuck did you just say? And he just walks by. Iris takes him away. No more questions, you know. And they're standing out there. And I'm like, where is your dad? And then Iris is like, maybe you should ask me out sometime. And he's like, yeah, I'm all awkward again and goofy like I was in the beginning of the movie. And then his phone rings and it's Bruce Wayne. And I'll tell you how it ended at the early screening. Okay. So his phone rings and it's Bruce Wayne. And
it was Kevin Conroy's
yes,
voice.
dude. I thought of that. I'm like, oh my God, what if, talk about if you were going to bring somebody back.
Or to give people a treat
Come
for
on.
a special limited screening.
Come on.
You'd be like, you'll never believe this. That didn't happen. It happened.
Yeah, right. Or at least just use his voice. He takes the call. It's Bruce Wayne. I'm going, is that Ben's voice? I can't hear it well enough.
No,
and
I wasn't in this
I
movie.
think that's intentional. But I was like, whose voice is that? And then the fancy car pulls up. You're like, oh shit. And the press runs over to the car. You see the door open and a foot on the ground. Fancy shoe, fancy suit, fancy socks. You're like, oh my God. It cuts back to Barry's face and he goes, who the fuck is this? And then it hard cuts to directed by Andy Muschietti and ends. I'm talking in 2 seconds ends. We see the text for a second and it's over. And they're like, that's it. I'm like, okay. And so I'm like texting people like, what the fuck? Who is it? Like what? And so I'm like, all right, I see they're doing the early screenings to build the hype.
Did you have to pay for this?
No, actually, which when I got there, I was like, wait, they just let us in?
Because I was going to say, this seems like a trick to get you to
amazing.
pay for it again, but I guess this is a trick to get you to pay for it once.
Honestly, from the undersold theaters that I was in this weekend, I think they did too many of those.
Oh, too many.
Too many early screenings who saw it for free.
Yeah, I heard this movie did worse than Black Adam.
Jesus Christ.
Had a worse opening.
That's probably because of Ezra backlash.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, people just fed up with DC because they always pull this shit like I'm about to describe. Finally saw the real version on Thursday. The foot, the press, and then through the press walks
Val Kilmer.
Bearded George Clooney. That's not nice. He doesn't look great these days. He's in poor health.
I could have been worse.
But we see a sharp-looking older George Clooney. Then we get the who the fuck is this? Sort of like, you're not Bruce Wayne. Who are you? What the fuck? And Clooney's like, Barry, what's wrong with you? And then it cuts back, and he's just making this puzzled look on his face with his mouth half open. And then they CGI'd badly his tooth falling out, but it was the other tooth. And we didn't mention this gag in the movie.
It was the
but
wrong
when he
tooth?
gets,
I didn't catch
but when
that.
he gets struck by lightning, when he loses his powers, one of his teeth falls out and goes down the hatch of the other Barry because they both have their mouth open. And so we see that. He crazy glues it back in, so it's not a thing for the rest of the movie. Funny enough gag. But then in this scene, the opposite tooth falls out of his mouth, and that's the end of the movie. And I was like, you're going to make that fucking big reveal, spoiler, don't tell anybody, a fucking joke with bad CGI, and that's how you're going to end this movie after this big emotional beat, and you skip the part of his dad getting out? What the fuck are you thinking? And then it cuts to the credits of the therapy dog falling, because earlier we never saw how the dog lands, and I'm like, why is the dog... We never see him get caught. How does he end up there sitting on top of the microwave? So here we show his entire fall. And we see him eyeing the food. And we see Barry in the background. And it's very much Guardians 2 with Groot dancing while the battle happens in the background. Then there's a post-credit scene with Aquaman. Barry's carrying his drunk ass out of a bar, and I'm like, this is stupid. And then when he face plants into that puddle, I genuinely laughed harder than half of the jokes in this movie. And he just starts singing a song to himself in the gutter and tells Barry to run off and get more beer. And I realized on the third viewing, because I wasn't really watching all the text fly by, and all the credits, they give away their own post-credit scene. One of the last things you see when you start paying attention, like, oh, it's almost over, is what? The music credits.
Yeah, it's the song he's singing.
Yeah. I'm a Sailor, performed by Jason Momoa, is the last fucking thing you see before it shows the company logos and no animals were harmed in this fucking, and then here's the scene. It's not hidden in the middle. It's fucking right there, clear as day. Like, are you kidding? How are you guys this bad at this?
Well, it wasn't important anyway. There's a dead universe. They're like... Post-credit scenes were novel when they were teasing something.
Yeah.
Now it's just like
Well, yeah, but Aquaman 2 is still coming.
Is it?
Yes. If they got anything left to hype, it's that.
Does that exist in this universe or one of the other multiverses?
Anyway. I do think it was another one because he's like, so you're telling me there's a version of me that,
That's my point. Is George Clooney going to be the Batman in that universe? Or?
Fuck, yeah, I guess. But it was upsetting that they played the closing bits for comedy. I liked the dog credits. That was funny. Keep that. But the other two bits just playing for a cheap joke was like, this movie is capable of so much more. Like, you've demonstrated it at times, and then you keep falling back on these Joss Whedon Justice League jokes.
Definitely is not just capable, but it's aspiring to be something more.
It is, and I think that it works when young Barry is the source of the humor, and in other scenes where you're trying to be funny in a situational way, and it's not goofy dumbass doing the joke, doesn't work. Doesn't work. A lot of the times, I think that's the problem. And when I first watched this, I was like, damn, this was a genuinely funny movie. It doesn't feel like, I haven't been a big fan of the last year or two worth of Marvel films.
Guardians 3 is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, because it felt like the old good shit,
It was better than the other movies. It's the best Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
It's my least favorite one, honestly, but I liked it a lot.
It's better than the others by far.
Number 2 is my favorite.
Better than that.
Cool. Well,
Don't minimize my existence.
Yeah, better than that. Don't attack me. No, I haven't been a big fan of those movies. It felt like they just they were repeating the formula without having anything to say. And this movie had something to say. It had some heart, and yet they kept forcing the jokes. They kept jamming them in there when they didn't need to be, like the shovel gag and stuff. It's just like, guys, by the time the punchline has existed, we've already realized, well, why didn't you just... It doesn't work, even in the moment. Why do you keep doing this? And so the end of the movie, to do the shit and double down on it, it's like, I don't know what you're thinking.
Because these movies cost a huge amount of money, and there's a whole group of people whose job is just to manage the investment of money, and they are trying to follow a formula that will ensure a return. And part of the thing is like, we need jokes. People will not like this movie if there's not lots of jokes.
And this is where our timeline deviates. After I watched this movie, I'm talking to Tom from the Bat Force. Well, because I know my friend Justin from Epic Film Guys, he's got all the inside track. He knows all these film people. He fucking hosted one of these screenings, And he's aware of 3 endings that they filmed for this movie, which is not uncommon if you have a big secretive thing, But he knew all of them.
Yeah, to filmed it, not just like planned it, but actually filmed it.
Yeah. So he was aware of them. I was like, don't tell me until I see the final cut, right? See the final cut. I'm talking to Tom. I was like, I kind of can't believe they did that. And he sends me a link. And it's from 1 year ago. It's on Reddit. And it's a full scene-by-scene plot breakdown. It was one of my guides for this conversation. It is 95% accurate, except for the last scene. So I can believe this coming out 1 year ago because they had all the other information right. Mm-hmm. As it's describing the outro.
Jesse Eisenberg walks up.
Yeah, this is how they describe it. There's a happy ending, but we're not done. The same Mercedes-Benz from the beginning pulls up, the doors open, and it's Michael Keaton, not Ben Affleck,
that's what I thought
stepping
the first
out
time.
of the car. Then Supergirl shows up. Barry is very confused. Wait a minute, how are you here? I put the tomato can back. My mom died. How are you here? And then they said, maybe you can tell us what happened. That's the end of the movie. And then the post-credits scene starts with Barry helping Aquaman drunk out of a bar. Barry says, wait here. He goes home, turns on his computer. There is Batfleck in the bat suit on the monitor. He says, Barry, you've got to help me. You changed the timeline. You've got to rescue me. And that is the real ending of the movie. So you fucking redeemed
Don't talk about me like that.
2 essential characters that you were selling this whole fucking movie on. And based on the rumors from a while back that James Gunn and Peter Safran cut Snyderverse cameos from this movie, and this year ago fucking post that has everything else right, we can deduce that James Gunn said, well, wouldn't that be nice? But this universe is dead. Fuck you.
But that also is a bad ending to me, so it doesn't matter.
I care less about the Batfleck post-credits scene
No, even just Michael
than I do about the Keaton one.
Keaton and
Because Keaton was supposed to follow this with fucking Batgirl, and they threw it in the trash. And my hope was that
stop shouting at me.
Brendan Fraser won a fucking Oscar and completely turned his career around from years of obscurity. And Michael Keaton reprised his role as fucking Batman, and everybody's raving about he's the best part of this goddamn movie. Okay, guys, you want to print some money? Fucking put it out!
Yeah, I'm okay with the idea of that. That's just also a bad ending. To go like,
I don't like you. I
you
was
keep
blown
inviting me
away
here.
by this.
No, that's bad to me because you can't.
And there's a photo of it. There was a set leak photo of Keaton in that same fucking suit.
No, that's bad. I mean, I did think when that was going to happen, I was like, oh, it's going to be Keaton in there, and that'll just be the thing of just like, oh, this universe is Keaton. But to have it be like,
Because it's over, it doesn't matter. Let him have it.
no, but
You're
to
not
have
going to make another movie.
No, to have it be like, it's not just Michael Keaton as Batman, it's the Michael Keaton from the universe that you abandoned and Supergirl from the universe you abandoned, and they remember it. That's bad. And then to not only do that, but then go, how did this happen? I don't know. You tell us. And then end. That's bad. Okay. And that's totally separate from the Batfleck thing. And I get it saying like, well, I don't want to do it because I'm not going to make any more of those movies, so we're not going to tease it. But that's worse than the Batfleck thing to me. If it was just like Michael Keaton gets out of there and goes, hey, kid. And then that's the end. Like, oh, so for whatever weird, like your rules don't make sense. So because of that, he's now the Batman of this universe too. That's cool.
Sure. And what I will say is the events in this timeline on this Reddit post are accurate.
No.
The way they're described are often not. So it has like all the things that happen, and yet it'll be saying something happened in a way that it actually didn't. Like we learned that information in a different way than what they explained because it's like third-hand information or something. So I'm giving it a grain of salt that like it might not be a beat-by-beat telling it as I read it, but the fact is he comes back at the end. They both come back at the end. Jesus Christ.
It's just
easy fucking math, guys.
No. I get what you mean, and I get why you're upset and what was stolen from you.
Yeah, it was.
But that's
exactly what Tom said. Never forget what was taken from us.
That's a cool Supergirl, and I would love to see more of her. But it just, again, it's again. It is
again.
Unfortunately, because this movie is all a bunch of weird, made-up time travel stuff, and the coolest parts of it only come about because of that. They also don't matter, and you can't bring them back in that way. You could, again, arbitrarily, say, I noticed that I say again a lot. That's why I'm saying that.
We all say it on this show a lot. I noticed through editing. Yeah.
It just can't be the people who were in the universe he just destroyed. But that gets to a bigger point that I guess I'll say in the...
Well, here, since we're talking about this scene, when it cut off abruptly at the early screening, I went, oh my God. They fucking got Christian Bale. They fucking got Christian Bale, and they're saving it.
I can imagine Christian Bale being like, fuck off, mate.
Well, his whole thing is he would only come back if it was Nolan. But guess whose same line was that? I would only come back if it was Tim Burton.
Oh.
For all those years. Mm. That's what he said. And so this worked. I'm like, oh my God, they fucking Spider-Man No Way Home does. They did it. Even if it's just for a second, I'd cream my jeans. That would be, honestly... That's better than the ending I just read to you. If it was Christian Bale, like you said, well, it's not the same guy. That's a little weird. Hey, Bruce, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, the excitement of seeing them is what makes the ending cool. It can't be like what I complained about. But
it would be
like,
perfect
yeah.
if he showed up. And then there's a site which I encourage everyone to unfollow as I did, Comic Book Resources, posted 1 week, I think, before release date. Final cut of The Flash reportedly has cameo from George Clooney and Aquaman. I'm talking about an infographic. It's not even in the headline. It's the goddamn...
It's the thing you see.
I was furious. I was like, well, I hope those assholes are wrong. And so already it was dumb, but then having already had it spoiled for me, it was extra dumb. And then knowing what it could have been, it was really dumb. And then thinking again about what I wanted it to be, oh, it's worse. It's so much worse.
I think the best thing you said about the ending that I agree with the most, abandoning the dad.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing they could have done. The problem with all
They
this...
killed his parents again.
The problem in the story, essentially, the problem with all the post-credit stuff and all, like, everything is just about teasing something else at the expense of the movie.
Yes.
Even if it was that ending that I think makes no sense and would be also bad, fixing the dad thing is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Give him a heartfelt reunion. You're coming home, Dad.
I'm wondering if the runtime...
Thanks for not giving up on me.
If the runtime edits BVS'd this movie in a way.
There's a 4-hour version.
Where it's like, well, no, there is. Oh. I think the working cut of this movie was 3 or 4 hours. Sasha had said, like, yeah, we shot some gnarly, like, R-rated fucking Supergirl shit that was rad. I don't know where it went, you know. And that happens with a lot of movies. But did they do it BVS style where they removed crucial plot points to show you crowd-pleasing whatever they thought was what you needed to see, you know, because...
All the 90-year-olds who are like, George Reeves, yes!
Because like that...
I've been waiting.
But like the theatrical version of that movie didn't work because they left out pivotal plot points that make Lex Luthor's plan kind of nonsense, you know, when you walk out of the theater, like, how did, you know... And so with this, if like, did they really cut short the dad thing, or did they just never even think to write it?
I feel like it's more the second one. Because this movie doesn't have any of those issues in my mind. There's no part in this movie where I was like, why did that happen? Why did they do it? Like,
yeah. But yeah, we were talking about the emotional context of the scenes with his mom and things like that. Like, I do think some of that shit was trimmed. Like, there's enough heart, but we want to see the crazy action, you know? That's the end of the movie. Did you have any Easter eggs?
No.
Okay,
Michael Keaton is in this movie.
Right, yeah. He was Batman before. Okay, I mentioned the Grayson sign, the movie posters, the Back to the Future gag.
There's a new soda called Starry they keep advertising. Did that just replace Sprite?
I don't know what you're talking about. I've ordered Sprite twice this week, so...
Okay. It's a lemon lime soda, and it looks like a fake ad from a movie.
Oh, well, I think Sierra Mist died off a while ago, so maybe it's replacing that.
Okay.
Oh, perhaps the best Batman 89 Easter egg, when they first get to the Batcave, and young Barry runs over, he's like, here's a bag that laughs. And it's fucking Joker's death rattle.
That's cute.
That was awesome. Oh, the Barrys in the final fight, when they team up, they're like, these guys are fast and strong. How are we supposed to whatever? He sort of co-opts the Justice League save one person. Like the one good Batman scene in that movie was I've never done battle. How do you, you know, I mean, just like save one person. You'll know what to do. And they have that sort of a moment.
Where he's teaching young Barry how to be a hero.
Yeah, exactly. Pros. What do you have?
Michael Keaton. Everything relating to Michael Keaton. The fan servicey stuff in the Chrono Bowl. Supergirl. Michael Shannon.
So mostly just the people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, again, young Barry's humor and Ezra's ability to play such good chemistry between both roles, I thought was great. It felt very seamless to me.
The roles were played well. I just really, they rubbed me the wrong way.
Visually. I thought you were talking about the effects of...
No, I mean, their performance is good. I just don't like the character.
Got it.
Either version.
The mom scenes. All the mom scenes really hit. Almost none of these movies really do a good job of having like human emotional stakes. And if it was just another Save the World third act, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care at all. Keaton's purpose in the story, the way he is brought back, I think is on brand for the character, does him justice, and it's not totally contrived like the George Clooney ending or, you know, something because when they first announced him, I was like, oh my God, wait, don't fuck up his legacy though, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And I think that it made sense the way that they did it for the story.
It's very believable that like it could just be like this is also a universe where Michael Keaton was Batman, but it's not the one we saw in any of those movies or anything.
Sure.
But the way this is told, it's very believable that this is...
But he has the laughing bag, man.
Well, no, that's just that he made that himself. There's no Joker in this yet. No, but I mean, the way they told the story, it's very believable that is the Batman from those movies, and this is the end of his story.
Totally. Yeah, and I like that. Keaton's best fight scenes, as I mentioned, his clever use of the gadgetry and very efficient, minimalist fighting, but like goddamn fun to watch.
Yeah, to get a modern version,
even if we only got 2 scenes of him.
That's all right. That was perfect.
It was plenty.
2 different nice scenes, like one just a hand-to-hand combat scene and then a big battle scene.
Yeah, it was great. Again, that they fixed Barry's weird running problem. I really like the way that all the Flash stuff looks in this movie. Him darting around just pulls it off great. But yeah, funny, heart, brought back the man who kickstarted this fucking genre. Well done all around in these categories. Cons. The floor is yours.
That's like I've complained about. The CG was disgusting. Not the ideas behind it, because the ideas, the art design and all that is interesting, but just like half of the berries look fake and weird. It's just fake, but like weird. Like the features are weird on the face of whichever one is not the one you're supposed to be looking at.
The shot I was going to agree with you on was they first meet and Barry won't stop talking. There's a close-up on Barry Prime's fist, and then we see the lightning start, and he's like, how hard, in his head, how hard do you have to hit somebody to make him forget? And he's swinging, and it cuts to young Barry, and for whatever reason, everything in the frame is abnormally dark, and it looks like his face is like digitally altered, and then there's like a flash of light, and he's like, oh, never mind. He's like, what were you about to do there? But I'm like, why would they make such... It was as egregious to me as the Batman Returns, like, we're going to cut to me with no eye makeup while I tear this off real quick. I was like, it's as clear as day. Like, why would you do
Some of that makes me wonder if some of those things were things they didn't film or finish, and because of everything surrounding...
Yeah, they're like, yeah, it's going to tank. Let's just put it out.
Yeah, we'll just digitally insert them like we did with all these dead people. We'll just like... They weren't even there to film this. We just created them in this scene.
The funny thing, too, is like, he's making the dumbest expression on his face in that shot, like, because he's mid-sentence, you know? And so, like, it's genuinely funny to look at, and it's also terrible.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
This movie also does a really poor job of making me think they're in a place, which is a thing I've complained about in a lot of movies where it's just so set-heavy. Every city scene felt like a lot on a Warner Brothers studio thing. If it's either that or it felt like they're in front of a green screen. Was the suit sometimes not even real? Were there scenes where the Flash suit was just computer generated?
I mean,
there are times when it looked like
Cyborg
it wasn't.
didn't even have a suit, so I mean, it's entirely possible. I wouldn't question that for a second.
And then, so those things aside, the biggest issue is just that because of the nature of being like a time travel multiverse story with really messy rules, I lacked investment. I had fun with those things that I complimented, but I was not invested in the story. I wasn't worried. I didn't care. The movie didn't make me care. I'm just like, there's infinite universes. Go find another one where everything's the way you want it.
Yeah.
Why do I care about any of this shit? It just did not move me.
Word. Mine are wasting the talents of Michael Shannon and hiding his face behind that shield. I really wish we had a moment where we cracked that, and then all of his future scenes without it, you know. Could have even been the infant did not survive, and she goes fucking berserk and like takes him out, and then like let him have the moment there. So then each time we repeat the fight scene, we're seeing his real fucking face, you know, and that menacing performance. Affleck's suit. Jesus God. This is...
It had cool like metallic breasts on it. That was nice.
Are you kidding?
Yes.
I've not heard one person say that they liked the new suit. Are you kidding?
Yes.
I was like so thrown that even when you said yes, I was still caught in the moment.
I told you I was kidding, and you didn't even hear it.
No, I was like, what the fuck? But it was terrible. It's like a bad action figure. Even the Hot Toys of it looks fucking awful. In fact, when they first showed the press photos of Keaton's suit, I was like, he looks goofy. He looks like an action figure. Like, his chest stuck out a little too much, and he had the stiff neck, you know, like normal, but like, it looked like he was tilted back slightly instead of forward a little bit. And I was like, this just looks odd. I don't know about this, man. Are they going to do this right? And then on screen, it looks great. I think I'm learning now, because I had the same apprehension about Pattinson when there was like leaked photos of his stunt double on set. And I'm like, that's a goofy looking cowl, man. I don't know. But then you see the amazing lighting and
wait for it in context.
Yeah, and the cinematography, it's so good. And so in this movie, I didn't mind Keaton's suit one bit, but oh my God, Affleck's is terrible. Like, His first suit was absolute perfection. They made it just a little bit worse in Justice League. They did weird color saturation to it in theatrical Justice League. They gave him the big armored Frank Miller suit, which is fine. That was a cool nod. And then they gave him the tactical armored Justice League suit. And then we see this abomination, and I'm like, you realize he already has the tactical armored suit. Why would you make it worse? I don't...
You need something new, man.
They didn't even get his likeness rights for this movie. That's why none of the figures and shit or the T-shirts or anything has Ben Affleck's face on them. They all look goofy. And somebody on the film was like, yeah, we kind of had to rush the suit and just get in production. I'm like, okay, then rush to the closet where you have the perfect one that was arguably the best suit ever made. Like, it's up there with 89 and Begins. It's fucking perfect.
You don't understand how movies work. You can't just do that. That closet is locked. There's a key.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Anyway, it's very upsetting to look at. I like that they finally used blue and gray on screen. That's neat. I wish it didn't have to be like this. Tom pointed this out. They removed his voice changer, too. I think Affleck has a good Batman voice without it, but it is weird. They made him lighthearted, they gave him a goofy suit, they changed his colors, and they got rid of his voice. Like, they just don't give a fuck about his legacy at this point. And it's weird. Affleck said with his own mouth, I'm only in this movie for like 5 minutes, but I finally feel like this is my favorite version of it. Like, I did it right this time. And I could see that in the Bruce Wayne scene.
But my ego is too big to accept help from anyone, to acknowledge help from anyone.
Yeah, that was still very fucking Joss Whedon. Like, I don't get that at all. I mentioned the easy access to the Batcave. That's bullshit. Showing us the Batmobile and never turning it on. Sean Murphy must be fucking screaming at the theater screen right now. Returning to Zod's attack on Metropolis. Again, that whole shit could have been cut. It looked bad. And again, it's a worse version of returning to that scene that we've already done. And then studio meddling, changing the fucking end. I just really am sick of it. I hate these fucking guys for this shit, you know? We already talked about this on the Black Adam episode of all the random ways they've spoiled their own movies. And with this, it's just like, you guys are incapable of learning. Even the new leadership, we're going to write the things, we're going to turn around and stop this shit show. Oh, but first, let me repeat the exact kind of shit that everyone hates us for. Yeah, that'll engender some trust in the public. In general audiences, yeah. That'll renew the faith for our new wave of way too many movies. Like, cool. Love those Guardians films. But Jesus Christ. James Gunn, Peter Safran. Buy a mirror. Look into it. You have some things to think about. Rating.
2.5. Almost feels too strong, but 2.5.
That's an expected Ben Polanski rating, I would say.
I saw Guardians 3 the night before, and I was like, that was a bad choice because that movie is so much better than this movie. I was tearing up all the time.
And you're a monster, so that's hard to do.
Yeah, no forced mom shit is going to work on me, you psycho megalomaniac actor.
Yeah, the parent shit always works for me.
It did in the movie Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, and 3. It worked really well.
I need to see that one again.
I watched all of them in the past 2 weeks leading up to it. Guardians 1, 2, Infinity War, Endgame, and the Christmas special. So I'd have the full context in my mind.
I did the same thing. Yeah, except the Christmas special. I watched, I think, 10 Marvel movies the week of the Guardians 3 release.
That would wear me down. I don't think I can handle that.
I really went to town. A few before and then a few after. It was a good time. My rating, I think I'm comfortable saying a 4. Because when I first saw it, it was an easy 5. It was so much fun. Everybody in the room was like, fuck yeah, you know, just walking out celebratory. And then the second time, like I said, it was like, boy, this has some problems. That's
Somebody
easily
cancel this movie.
Like,
you know
that's easily losing a whole star worth of issues right there. And then I saw it again, and I was like, just enjoyment factor. It's still a 4.5. It's really fun. I like a lot of the stuff in it. Beginning's a little drag, you know. Very, very, very end kind of sucks, but like, there's 2 hours of really fun movie in there. And then after talking about it again, it's just like, this has too many problems to deduct half a star. I can't do it.
The ending you want, I'm just thinking about it, where it's like, Michael Keaton comes out and he's like, hey, kid. And then he's like, what? And then Supergirl flies over and she's like, hello, Earthling. What? How are you guys here? Well, Mom, where are you? Mom? Oh, I'm sorry, kid. She's still dead.
Oh, God.
It has to happen. It's a spaghetti moment. You understand how this, I explained this earlier. It's, some things have to happen.
It's a real knee slapper joke for the ending. Yeah, it's great. Or you could just have George Clooney get out of the car. Who the fuck is this? And then the phone is still talking. You're like, wait, what? Hello?
What about,
and it's one of the other ones.
What about as George Clooney goes, hey, kid. And he's like, you're Batman? And he goes, Batman? Who's that?
Yeah, dude. That would have been way better. He just undid Batman. And that would explain why the universe is done. We're not getting another Batman from this. Like, honestly, that's way better. You have come up with 2 way better endings than the one we got, even without changing the person that they chose. And for the record, I've hated on his movie. He's a fine actor.
George
I
Clooney?
love him.
Yeah.
There's nothing he could have done to save that movie. And we talked about his good emotional scenes with Alfred and stuff. Like, he did the best he could in that context. And so if anyone deserved a redeeming moment,
Truly.
it's George Clooney's Batman.
You could give it to Val Kilmer too, but he's not in a state where he could do that. But
yeah, and I mean,
his
is
movie is
genuinely
better,
adored by a lot of people. Though.
and it's a much better movie than Batman and Robin.
But this is cool for me in that way.
Sure.
Just I can
Christian
have
Bale doesn't need like.
I can have
okay, his Batman is good.
I can have the compersion to say, good for you. I'm glad that you had that. But then just as a viewer and a fan, I mean, like, that's the best you got? The universally agreed worst one. That's the one.
How about this joke? You're Bruce Wayne? Gosh, I need to go listen to some Beatles music to deal with this. And then he goes, the Beatles? Who are they?
That's already a movie.
Yes.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I liked it. It's better than this movie.
Well, thank you, Andy and Barbara, Christina Hodson, and everybody involved in bringing back our childhood hero. That was really a delight to see. And I think part of the excitement with these early screenings was like, because of all the studio meddling, Affleck's Batman movie never got made, Snyder got fired, Batgirl with Keaton in it got canceled, so he himself was not enough of a draw to save that movie. I thought for sure having this accused piece of shit lead the film.
Correct pronouns.
Oh, this one's, it's not a pronoun, Ben. Come on. Your joke doesn't work.
Piece of shit? When have my jokes worked? Come on, that's not my guiding principle.
There's no guarantee that this movie was going to get made. And so there was sort of a feeling of elation, like, wow, they really did it. You know, what's that movie? You son of a bitch, you just did it. You know, like, it was really something to see. Like I said, I've seen it 3 times. I will see it more times.
I'll watch a sweet 5-minute music video of the cool parts that I want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
Andy,
throw a bone to anyone who was in the Flash TV show.
Yeah. I know people are bummed about that.
People
I mean,
who
there's a lot of cameos you could have done.
I don't care about that show at all. I've never seen it. But the people who are most interested in your franchise, most invested in it, and you're like, no.
Or like Brandon Routh. Like, he's back as Superman on that fucking one of those shows. Like,
he's on 2 CW shows as Superman and somebody else.
Yeah, like, come on. That would have been an easy one. I'm sure that some people would have preferred that to Nick Cage, you know. I'd say have them both, you know. Like, George Reeves, again,
Nick
like
Cage
no one
fighting that spider. Oh, I almost forgot this is about a dead mom. Okay.
Yeah. But like the George Reeves one is very much just a novelty. Like, no one alive now watched that, you know, like, come on. I'm sure there's some super fans, but like for the most part, general audiences, that's as obscure as the Nick Cage movie that didn't get made.
They made up a black and white Superman for this movie. That's cool.
Yeah, you know, like I only know that from Ben Affleck playing that guy in the Black Dahlia murder or whatever that movie was. Was that the one?
Yeah.
Fucking De Palma movie. So there's definitely some questionable choices in an otherwise just entertaining movie.
Hey, everybody, be nice to your mom. That's the message of The Flash. But also,
it's a message on Father's Day that we would like to impart.
Be nice to your mom. Ignore your dad.
Ignore your dad when he needs it the most.
That's what I thought about with him. I was like, man, that dad is so unimportant that they just changed the guy and nobody cares.
Yeah, and they just forgot about him in his big trial at the end. Like, fuck, man.
This is Robin. Thanks for checking out the Bat Fanatic podcast with Sammy Warmhands.
All right, that is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you for your patience while we have this break in the middle of season 3. We do have episodes up the sleeve. I had to replace my computer system that I record everything on, and now we're back up and running. This episode, for example, was 3 hours and 50 minutes long. I made about 3,000 cuts to it. It took me 4 days to do it. And this is just to ensure the best pacing, the best listening experience, that if we're going to go this deep and make an episode this fucking long, that it's not going to drag for you. So this is the level of quality that we're going to keep delivering. Just give us a little bit of time and we'll be back, as promised, with Batman the Imposter.